In the early 1960s, a young psychologist named Stanley Milgram conducted a groundbreaking experiment that would forever alter our understanding of human behavior, particularly in relation to authority and obedience. The study was designed to explore the extent to which individuals would comply with orders given by someone they considered to be an authority figure, even when those orders conflicted with their personal conscience. The experiment took place at Yale University, where participants were led to believe they were part of a study on learning and memory. Each participant was assigned the role of a teacher, while another individual, who was in fact a confederate or actor, played the role of a, quote, learner. The setup was deceptively simple. The teacher was instructed to administer a series of word pairs to the learner, who was seated in a separate room. When the learner made a mistake, the teacher was told to administer electric shocks as a form of punishment, with the voltage increasing after each incorrect answer. Before the experiment began, the participants were briefed about their roles. What they did not know was that the shocks were not real, and that the learner was not actually in danger. The purpose of this deception was to observe how far participants would go in obeying commands from an authority figure, represented by the experimenter, who wore a lab coat and exemplified a confident presence. As the experiment unfolded, the learners began to respond incorrectly on purpose, and the teacher was faced with the increasingly troubling task of delivering what they believed to be painful shocks. Starting at a low voltage, the teacher would hear the learner's responses escalate to groans and cries for help. At certain points, the learner would eventually stop responding altogether, making it seem as if they could have been seriously harmed. Yet, even as the situation became increasingly uncomfortable and morally ambiguous, the authority figure would press the teacher to continue, urging them that it was essential for the study and that they must not stop. In the end, the results were shocking and revealed a deep-seated inclination toward obedience among the participants. Approximately 65% of the teachers were willing to administer the highest voltage shock, which was labeled as, quote, dangerous by the experimenters. This statistic exemplifies a troubling truth about human nature. People were willing to go to great lengths to fulfill the demands of authority, often at the cost of their own moral compass. Milgram's findings sparked extensive discussion and debate in psychological circles and beyond. The experiment exposed a powerful influence that authority can wield over an individual's actions, leading many to ponder the implications of this obedience in real-world scenarios. Historical events such as the Holocaust were often cited as examples of how individuals could commit atrocious acts under the guise of following orders, raising the question of what this means for humanity as a whole. The implications of the Milgram experiment extend beyond the confines of a laboratory. It challenged participants and observers alike to reflect on their own values and the pressures they face from societal or hierarchical structures. It prompted discussions about the role of personal responsibility, ethical considerations, and the moral duties we hold against the instructions of those in positions of authority. Critics of the experiment also raised ethical concerns regarding the emotional distress experienced by participants when confronted with the reality of what they were doing. Many felt uncomfortable with the idea that ordinary people were pushed to justify painful actions simply because they were instructed to do so. This spurred further discussions about the morality of psychological experimentation and the lengths researchers should go to in pursuit of knowledge. Milgram's work has continued to resonate through various domains, from psychology to sociology to ethics. It has inspired countless studies and discussions around obedience and the psychology of authority. Notably, it encourages introspection about how easily one might comply with directives that challenge personal ethics, whether it happens in the workplace, in government, or within everyday societal interactions. Even in contemporary contexts, the lessons from Milgram's research echo daily in discussions about authority and compliance. It serves as a reminder of the importance of critical thinking, ethical judgment, and the complex interplay between individual conscience and societal expectations. Understanding the dynamics at play in obedience helps illuminate the reasons behind human behavior and potential ramifications in various scenarios. In summary, the Milgram experiment is not merely a historical footnote. It remains a powerful study that continues to engage scholars, students, and thoughtful individuals in discussions about morality, authority, and human behavior. By contemplating the results of this iconic research, we are not only peeling back layers of psychological insight, but also reflecting on the responsibilities we carry as individuals in a world that often places authority on a pedestal. Whether in our personal lives or broader societal structures, the echoes of this experiment compel us to engage with our own moral convictions and the nature of our responses to authority. The Stanford Prison Experiment, conducted in 1971 by psychologist Philip Zimbardo, stands as a pivotal study in understanding power dynamics and human behavior in a simulated prison environment. This groundbreaking experiment sought to examine how individuals would adapt to the roles of prison guards and prisoners when placed in an environment that fosters authority and submission. The context of this experiment is fascinating. Zimbardo, along with his team, set up a mock prison in the basement of Stanford University. The participants, college students, were selected through a rigorous screening process, ensuring they were psychologically stable and healthy. After selecting 24 volunteers, they were randomly assigned to either the role of guard or prisoner. This randomness stripped away any personal predispositions towards authority or aggression, making it easier to observe natural behaviors in the given roles. Upon entering the simulated prison, the atmosphere was charged with tension. The guards were given uniforms, sunglasses to prevent eye contact, and batons to assert their authority. The prisoners, on the other hand, were stripped of their identities. They were assigned numbers, wore smocks and caps, and were referred to only by these numbers, which dehumanized them and shifted their perception of self. As days passed, the roles began to take a toll on participants. The power dynamics shifted dramatically. The guards, who initially were instructed to maintain order and insignificantly assert their authority, quickly escalated their behaviors. They became increasingly abusive, employing psychological tactics and even physical intimidation. Some guards derived pleasure from their newfound power, showcasing how authority can corrupt even the most ordinary individuals. This behavior sparked discussions about moral responsibility and the ease with which someone can slip into cruelty when cloaked in the guise of authority. On the contrary, the prisoners experienced a severe decline in mental health. What was meant to be a 2-week study was cut short after only 6 days due to the alarming transformation in behavior. Many prisoners showed signs of extreme stress, emotional breakdowns, and helplessness. This intense reaction highlighted how quickly individuals can internalize their roles and the environment they are placed in. It emphasizes the vulnerability of people when stripped of their identity and autonomy, illustrating that power dynamics can render once confident individuals into submissive figures. The fallout from the experiment rippled across various fields, from psychology to sociology, as it challenged pre-existing notions about authority, conformity, and human morality. It questioned the ethics of psychological research and the extent to which environments can shape behavior. After the study, criticisms arose concerning the ethical implications of placing individuals in such psychologically distressing conditions. Zimbardo himself acknowledged that the experiment's results were shocking and showed how dangerous dynamics could emerge from mere role assignment in situational context. Moreover, the implications of the Stanford Prison Experiment extend beyond its immediate participants. It serves as a lens through which we can analyze and understand historical phenomena, including abuses of power in actual prisons, military institutions, and even in corporate environments. The findings prompted a further investigation into systemic issues related to power structures in society and how culture influences behavior. In essence, the Stanford Prison Experiment invites us to reflect on our own actions and the influences that power can have on individuals. It forces us to pose essential questions. How would we act in a situation where authority is given unchecked? Would we become the enforcers of rules or defenders of the abused? Recognizing these dynamics can empower us to foster environments that promote kindness and understanding, rather than division and hostility. In conclusion, the Stanford Prison Experiment offers rich insights into human nature. It reveals not only how individuals can be transformed by their roles, but also how quickly society can turn a blind eye to moral compromise when authority is wielded without accountability. This exploration of power dynamics serves as both a cautionary tale and a call to greater awareness of our own actions and those of the institutions that shape our lives. By examining these intricate relationships, we can strive to create a future where empathy and human dignity are held to the highest standard, together creating a more compassionate world. In 1920, a groundbreaking psychological experiment took place at Johns Hopkins University that would leave a lasting impact on the field of psychology. Known as the Little Albert Experiment, it was conducted by John B. Watson and his graduate student, Rosalie Rayner. This study was designed to explore the phenomenon of classical conditioning, which had been initially described by Ivan Pavlov through his work with dogs. The experiment focused on an infant referred to as Little Albert, a name assigned for anonymity. Albert was a healthy, 9-month-old boy who had been exposed to various stimuli before the experiment. Watson and Rayner aimed to investigate whether emotional responses could be conditioned in a child, just as physiological responses could be conditioned in animals. Their hypothesis was simple yet profound. If a neutral stimulus could be paired with an emotional response, that neutral stimulus would eventually evoke a similar emotional reaction on its own. The experiment began with little Albert being introduced to several stimuli that were neutral in nature. This included a white rat, which he encountered first, along with other objects such as a rabbit, a monkey, and a variety of masks. Initially, Albert showed no fear of these items. However, the researchers wanted to create a fearful response in Albert, so they devised a plan to condition him to fear the white rat specifically. In an innovative yet morally questionable approach, Watson and Rayner presented the rat to Albert while simultaneously creating a loud, frightening noise by striking a metal bar with a hammer. This noise, of course, was loud enough to startle anyone. The combination of the white rat and the sudden, frightening sound resulted in an intense fear reaction from Albert. Watson and Rayner repeated this pairing several times, and gradually, Albert began to associate the rat with fear. Soon, Albert would cry and show distress even when the rat appeared without the accompanying loud noise. The experiment did not stop with just the rat. Watson and Rayner also observed that Albert's fear generalized to other white, fluffy stimuli. For instance, when presented with a white rabbit or even a Santa Claus mask with a fluffy beard, Albert exhibited signs of fear and distress, suggesting that the conditioned response was not limited to just the rat. This generalization demonstrated a fundamental aspect of conditioned responses. Once a reaction is learned, it can transfer to similar stimuli. The Little Albert experiment was groundbreaking for several reasons. It provided empirical evidence that emotions could be conditioned in humans, not just animals. This finding had profound implications for understanding how fears and phobias could develop. For instance, it offered insights into how individuals might develop irrational fears based on traumatic experiences in childhood, or even inadvertently learn from their surroundings. However, the ethical implications of the experiment raised significant concerns. At that time, the concept of informed consent was not as well understood, and little Albert's mother was likely not fully aware of the consequences of the experiment. Additionally, Watson and Rayner did not take steps to decondition Albert or to provide support after the experiment concluded, which left a lasting mark on discussions of ethical standards in psychological research. The Little Albert experiment has continued to be a point of reference in discussions of psychology and conditioning. It underscores the complexity of human emotions and the ways in which experiences shape our responses to the world. The outcomes of Watson's and Rayner's work prompted further investigation into behavioral responses, leading to a deeper understanding of emotional conditioning and its impact on behavior. Today, Little Albert's story serves as a reminder of the importance of ethical considerations in psychological research. The legacy of the experiment has facilitated discussions regarding the rights of participants, informed consent, and the necessity of ensuring the well-being of individuals involved in psychological studies. As a formidable case in the history of psychology, the Little Albert experiment highlights the intersection of groundbreaking research and ethical responsibility, shedding light on a powerful aspect of human development. In summary, the Little Albert experiment was a pioneering study that examined how emotions could be conditioned in a young child. It demonstrated that fear could be learned through association, showing how similar stimuli could elicit the same response. While initially celebrated for its contributions to psychology, it also sparked debates about ethics and the treatment of participants in research. As we reflect on this controversial study, we gain insight not only into classical conditioning, but also into the broader implications of psychological research and the importance of ethical practices in the field. In the 1930s, a young speech researcher named Wendell Johnson conducted a series of experiments now known as the Monster Study. This controversial study took place at the University of Iowa and involved orphan children, making it even more notorious given the vulnerable population involved. The objective was to explore the effects of positive and negative reinforcement on speech development, specifically focusing on stuttering. However, the ethical implications of the research have since raised serious concerns and sparked discussions about research ethics in psychology and medicine. Johnson was interested in the psychology of communication and how language development could be influenced by external feedback. In the study, he divided a group of orphans into two groups. One group received positive speech therapy, while the other group faced negative criticism regarding their speech. The children in the first group were praised for their speaking abilities, even if they had difficulties with their speech. In contrast, the second group received comments designed to instill fear and insecurity. They were told things like they were overreacting, or that they were stutterers downplaying their speech efforts. The results of the study were concerning. The children who were labeled as stutterers began to exhibit signs of stuttering or worsened their existing speech difficulties. This negative labeling undoubtedly fostered feelings of shame and inadequacy among the participants. When we think about the power of language and feedback, the implications of this are staggering. Positive encouragement can nurture confidence and growth, while harsh criticism can lead to regression and anxiety. Johnson believed that if negative reinforcement could lead to stuttering, then positive reinforcement should theoretically help overcome it. However, he overlooked the psychological impact that negative comments could have on the orphans' emotional well-being. The lengthy aftermath for many of the children was profound, as several of them struggled with self-esteem and emotional health well into adulthood. These long-lasting effects have brought to light the importance of ethical considerations in research, especially when it comes to children or vulnerable populations. Despite its troubling nature, the monster study did contribute to our understanding of speech pathology and child development. The debates sparked by the ethics of the experiment led to stricter guidelines around research involving human subjects, particularly vulnerable populations. Today, ethical standards demand informed consent, respect for participants, and an understanding of potential harm. The monster study has become a cautionary tale, emphasizing the importance of empathy and ethical practices in research. Through this lens, we can appreciate the complexities surrounding the study. It serves as a reminder that scientific inquiry should always aim to advance knowledge while prioritizing the dignity and well-being of participants. We are reminded that every individual, especially children, deserves an environment that fosters encouragement and growth, rather than one stricken with fear and negativity. In the years following the unveiling of the monster study, researchers and psychologists alike have worked tirelessly to establish frameworks that consider the psychological implications of feedback. This research emphasizes the necessity of compassion in education and speech therapy. Encouraging children to express themselves freely promotes personal growth and confidence, while negative reinforcement can only lead to psychological obstacles that hinder progress. Today, the legacy of the monster study pivots around promoting more supportive and ethical environments. The brilliance of exploration lies not just in what we uncover, but also in how we treat the subjects of our inquiry. As a society, it is vital to critically analyze past events like the monster study and learn from them, ensuring that the spirit of inquiry remains aligned with an unwavering commitment to humanity. In essence, there's tremendous power in the spoken word and the narratives we choose to weave. Children are particularly impressionable, and it's crucial to foster an atmosphere where their voices are cherished and nurtured. By building positive communication channels, we can set a foundation that promotes confidence, resilience, and an appreciation for the art of speaking. Through thoughtful reflection on experiments like the monster study, we evolve our understanding of the influence of language, perception, and feedback. We are challenged to seek a better path for future generations, making sure that the legacy of such studies morph into lessons about kindness and integrity in both research and in everyday life. Thus, the conversation on how we communicate continues to unfold, reminding us that each interaction has the potential to shape someone's story for years to come. The Tuskegee syphilis study stands out as a significant and troubling chapter in the history of medical research and ethics in the United States. Conducted between 1932 and 1972, the study aimed to understand the natural progression of untreated syphilis in African American men, yet it became infamous for its ethical violations and the disregard for human rights. The origin of the study can be traced back to a time when syphilis was a significant public health concern. At the beginning of the 20th century, syphilis was a prevalent venereal disease that could lead to severe long-term health issues, including blindness, neurological problems, and death. Public health officials sought to learn more about the disease's impact, particularly in marginalized populations. In 1932, researchers from the United States Public Health Service began the study in Macon County, Alabama, targeting a group of approximately 600 African American men. Out of these, around 399 men were known to have syphilis, while 201 did not have the disease and served as a control group. The men, often described as sharecroppers and part of a vulnerable community, were told they were being treated for bad blood, a term encompassing various ailments, but were not informed that they were participants in a study observing the disease's progression without providing treatment. Participants never received effective treatment, even after penicillin became the widely accepted remedy for syphilis in the 1940s. The researchers sought to track the disease's effects, conducting numerous medical examinations, lumbar punctures, and blood tests over the decades. While the men were initially promised free medical care, meals, and burial insurance, the deeper promise of fair treatment was never realized. Instead, they were misled, facing significant health problems while believing they were being helped. This lack of informed consent and the failure to provide treatment stand as glaring ethical failures. Various factors contributed to this troubling situation. The men in the study were often poor, uneducated, and living in a society that had a history of racism and exploitation, leading to a power dynamic that skewed toward the researchers' interests and away from the health and well-being of the participants. As the study progressed, the consequences for these men were catastrophic. Many suffered from advanced stages of syphilis, leading to debilitating health issues. A significant number died prematurely due to the disease, while others unwittingly transmitted it to their partners and children. The ripple effects of the study did not end there. The children and subsequent generations experienced the consequences of untreated syphilis, including physical and mental health challenges. Public revelation of the Tuskegee syphilis study occurred in the 1970s, sparking outrage and leading to a significant ethical reckoning in medical research. Investigative journalists revealed the story to the public, sparking widespread condemnation of the practices that had been allowed to continue for far too long. The outcry resulted in reforms in how medical research is conducted, including more stringent requirements for informed consent, ethical oversight, and an emphasis on the rights and welfare of participants in research studies. One of the most significant outcomes of the Tuskegee study was the establishment of regulations governing research involving human subjects. The Belmont Report, developed in 1979, articulated ethical principles that guide research today: respect for persons, beneficence, and justice. This report laid the foundation for the federal regulations guiding institutional review boards, ensuring that future studies are conducted with ethical principles at their core. Moreover, the legacy of the Tuskegee syphilis study has continued to influence discussions about medical ethics, particularly in regard to issues of race and trust in the healthcare system. Many African Americans, influenced by this history, have expressed skepticism about medical research and healthcare practices, leading to ongoing discussions about health disparities, access to care, and the importance of community engagement in health research. In sum, the Tuskegee syphilis study remains a crucial lesson in ethics and humanity's responsibility toward respecting individuals in all aspects of life, particularly in medical research. While it provided valuable insights into the effects of untreated syphilis, the costs were borne by individuals who were deceived and exploited. This historical event serves as a reminder that ethical standards in research are not just regulatory requirements, but are essential for the dignity and rights of all individuals, especially the vulnerable and marginalized. It also underscores the ongoing journey toward healing and trust in communities historically hurt by the very structures meant to protect their health and well-being. Through reflection and reform, there remains hope for a future where such tragedies do not repeat, and where respect, consent, and dignity prevail in the realm of health research for everyone. During the Cold War era, a secret program known as MKUltra emerged, showcasing the lengths to which the government would go in exploring the mysteries of the human mind. The Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA, initiated MKUltra in the early 1950s as a response to fears about mind control capabilities potentially being wielded by adversary nations, especially in the context of espionage, interrogation, and psychological warfare. At the heart of MKUltra was a profound curiosity about the psyche and how manipulative techniques might be developed. The project sought to understand and control human behavior through various means, primarily focusing on the effects of drugs like LSD and other substances. Conducting experiments that often lacked ethical oversight, researchers explored ways to alter a person's mental state, utilizing techniques that ranged from hypnosis to sensory deprivation. One of the most intriguing aspects of MKUltra was the use of LSD, a powerful psychedelic drug that dramatically alters perception, mood, and cognitive processes. The CIA became captivated by the concept of using LSD to enhance interrogation methods. Theata certainly was the idea. Imagine being able to extract information from someone without traditional questioning techniques. In experiments, subjects were given the drug without their consent or knowledge, leaving them vulnerable and disoriented. The effects of LSD could induce hallucinations and a temporary shift in perception of reality, which made it appealing to those involved in the project. Through a series of studies, the CIA sought to evaluate the drug's potential as a truth serum, believing it could lead to unintended confessions and disclosure of secrets. However, many of these experiments raised serious ethical questions. Often, subjects were unaware they were participating in an experiment, and debates around informed consent were virtually non-existent. This lack of ethical consideration reflects a disregard for the well-being of individuals in pursuit of government objectives. MKUltra's reach extended beyond LSD. The CIA experimented with a plethora of other techniques, hoping to unlock the secrets of the mind. Methods included administering drugs like amphetamines and barbiturates, as well as utilizing psychological manipulation techniques such as sensory deprivation and hypnosis. Particularly, they explored the impact of trauma on memory and behavior, seeking to understand how to create dissociative states or alter past memories. Among the most infamous stories from MKUltra are the tales of individuals, often unsuspecting, who were subjected to harsh experiments. The project involved unwitting test subjects, including mental patients, drug addicts, and the general public. One notable figure, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, was a prominent scientist involved in the project. He recognized the potential for psychedelic substances to lead to profound changes in human consciousness, yet the true extent of the experiments remained obscured. The lack of public knowledge regarding the project allowed for a troubling amount of freedom in how experiments were conducted. In the 1970s, as revelations about the Vietnam War and various government activities began to surface, MKUltra started to come to light. Investigations shed light on the program's activities, leading to public outrage. In the wake of the scandal, many of the records related to MKUltra were destroyed, making it difficult to capture the full scope of the operations that took place. However, what remains clear is that this program was a disturbing reflection of how far a government might go in the name of national security and the quest for knowledge. The idea of controlling a mind, changing thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions, raises moral and philosophical questions that resonate even today. The implications of such control challenge the very essence of autonomy and free will. MKUltra revealed a darker side to psychological inquiry and experimentation that led society to grapple with the consequences of unchecked scientific exploration. How much control should a person have over their own mind, and how vulnerable are we to external influences? Even in contemporary discussions surrounding mental health and pharmacology, the legacy of MKUltra lingers. Today we witness a delicate balance between the positive potential of psychiatric research and the ethical boundaries that must be maintained to protect individuals from harm. Lessons learned from the MKUltra era continue to inform guidelines and regulations in scientific research, emphasizing the importance of consent, transparency, and respect for personal autonomy. As we navigate the complexities of psychological research, it is crucial to remember the stories of those affected and to strive for ethical practices that prioritize human dignity. The tale of MKUltra serves as a cautionary reminder of the power dynamics inherent in experimentation and the enduring quest for understanding within the realms of the mind. What ended in secrecy and controversy continues to provoke thought about the intersection of science, ethics, and personal agency, encouraging ongoing conversations about the human experience in the context of external influences. While the curiosity surrounding the mind remains, we must tread carefully, ensuring that our exploration honors the complexities and rights of each individual. Unit 731 represents one of the most chilling chapters in the history of biological warfare, conducted by the Imperial Japanese Army during World War II. This secretive unit focused on the development and testing of biological weapons, initiating gruesome experiments that inflicted unimaginable suffering on thousands of individuals. Established in 1936, Unit 731 operated primarily in Harbin, China, and was led by Dr. Shiro Ishii, a physician and microbiologist. Dr. Ishii believed that biological research held the key to winning wars. His fascination with the human body and disease led to an inhumane quest to unlock the secrets of biological warfare. The unit was initially referred to as the Epidemic Prevention Department of the Quantum Army before its operations expanded, leading to its infamous renaming. The experiments conducted by Unit 731 involved human subjects, many of whom were prisoners of war or civilians captured during the occupation of China. The victims were treated as mere objects, deprived of their rights, and subjected to horrific conditions. These experiments included exposure to deadly pathogens, such as plague, anthrax, and tularemia. In one notorious instance, subjects were deliberately infected with plague, and then studied to determine the effectiveness of various treatments. Not only did Unit 731 engage in testing biological weapons, but they also experimented with live vivisection, where subjects were operated on without anesthesia to study the effects of various diseases on the human body. They would dissect living individuals, examining the internal organs while they were still conscious. This form of medical research showcased the depths of human cruelty, pushing ethical boundaries beyond imagination and raising profound moral questions about the nature of science and humanity. Another aspect of their research was frostbite experiments. For these tests, researchers would expose limbs of subjects to extreme cold, then observe the effects of freezing and thawing. Afterward, methods for treating frostbite were tested on these victims, often leaving them permanently damaged, or even resulting in their deaths. Unit 731's brutality did not stop with mere physical experiments. The unit conducted a wide range of gruesome acts, including weaponizing diseases to test the potential for mass casualties. They developed bombs filled with plague-infested fleas, and even orchestrated simulated biological attacks on Chinese cities to assess the spread of infection and panic. Entire communities were affected, with substantial impacts on public health and safety. Despite their heinous actions, after the war, many members of Unit 731 were not brought to justice. In a controversial decision, the United States granted immunity to certain individuals in exchange for data and findings collected during these atrocities. This decision emphasizes the darker side of wartime ethics and the complex nature of political expediency. What remains as a legacy of Unit 731 is not just a grim reminder of what humanity is capable of, but also a critical lesson regarding the dictates of morality and science. The debates around bioethics and the limits of experimentation resonate today, reminding us of our collective responsibility to ensure that scientific pursuit does not infringe upon human dignity. While the exact number of victims remains unclear, estimates suggest tens of thousands may have suffered at the hands of this infamous unit. Many of their stories and the full extent of the horrors experienced remain untold, overshadowed by the broader impacts of the war. A significant aspect of this history has often been overlooked or relegated to obscurity, underscoring the challenges in confronting the uncomfortable truths of our past. As we reflect on the events associated with Unit 731, it serves as a stark reminder of the capacity for cruelty that exists within humanity and the lengths individuals can go in the name of science and power. Awareness of these events encourages discussion about ethical responsibilities in research and the importance of remembering history to prevent repeating the same mistakes. While advancements in science and medicine have allowed us to overcome many diseases, the ethical implications of how knowledge is sought and used remain a crucial concern. Scientific research should always be conducted compassionately, grounded in respect for human rights, and mindful of the consequences of our quest for knowledge. Thus, while Unit 731's dark legacy lingers, it also emphasizes the importance of vigilance in our pursuit of advancements. The horrors of biological experimentation remind us that empirical success should never come at the expense of humanity, and that the march of progress must be conducted responsibly and ethically. This history pushes us to reflect on our practices and choices as we strive for a better future, fostering an environment where ethics are held as paramount in every aspect of research and development. In the realm of scientific exploration and human rights, few topics evoke as much concern and intrigue as the Aversion Project, a deeply controversial study conducted in South Africa during the late 1970s and early 1980s. This project was part of a broader set of experiments aimed at addressing issues related to sexuality within the military. More specifically, the Aversion Project focused on attempting to, quote, cure homosexuality among male military conscripts through a series of dubious psychological and medical interventions. At the heart of the Aversion Project was the belief held by the government and military authorities that homosexuality was a disorder that could be treated or corrected. The prevailing attitude during this period was that homosexual individuals were threats to military cohesion and effectiveness. This misguided ideology led to the implementation of various aversion techniques designed to eliminate same-sex attraction. The methods included electroconvulsive therapies, hormonal treatments, and other forms of psychological conditioning, all of which were devoid of ethical consideration. One particularly shocking aspect of the Aversion Project was the use of electroshock therapy. Conscripts were subjected to electrical shocks while being shown images of men or engaging in scenes that reminded them of same-sex attraction. This technique was rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of human sexuality, asserting that fear and pain could replace sexual desire. Such practices highlighted a broader cultural and societal belief that rampantly stigmatized homosexuality as an aberration rather than a natural variation of human experience. Despite the clear ethical violations inherent in the project, it is essential to recognize the context in which these actions were taken. The South African military at the time was shaped by a larger narrative of conservatism and authoritarianism. The post-apartheid era brought about significant changes, yet the legacy of this period still resonates within various societal structures today. Retrospectively, the Aversion Project serves as a chilling reminder of how fear and prejudice can fuel human rights abuses, especially against marginalized communities. The repercussions of the Aversion Project extended beyond the immediate suffering of the individuals involved. Those subjected to these experiments often reported lasting psychological trauma, compounded by the societal stigma they faced. Many of the conscripts who underwent these procedures battled with their identities long after their service ended, experiencing feelings of shame and confusion. The trauma did not simply dissipate with time. It became an integral part of their narratives and a reflection of the systemic oppression they endured. As awareness of the Aversion Project grew through whistleblowing and advocacy efforts, the South African government faced mounting pressure to confront its past actions. In the years that followed, discussions about reparations and acknowledgement of the injustices suffered by LGBTQ+ individuals in the military became increasingly prominent. Human rights organizations, both local and international, encouraged the South African government to recognize these human rights violations and actively work towards building a more inclusive society. Today, the Aversion Project stands as a case study in the necessary evolution of societal attitudes towards sexuality and mental health. Movements advocating for LGBTQ+ rights emphasize the need for acceptance rather than correction. The journey toward understanding and embracing diversity in sexual orientation is framed not as a deviation from the norm, but as a vital aspect of human experience. Initiatives aimed at education, awareness, and policy reform help dismantle the harmful ideologies that fueled the Aversion Project. With each step taken towards acceptance, the very fabric of society changes, teaching future generations the importance of compassion, understanding, and the inherent value of all individuals, regardless of whom they love. Reflecting on the historical context of the Aversion Project opens up discussions about the intersection of science, ethics, and social justice. How can we ensure that such violations of human rights never happen again? This question resonates not only within the scope of sexual orientation, but also extends to various marginalized communities that continue to face discrimination based on their identities. Ultimately, the legacy of the Aversion Project should compel us to think critically about the responsibilities held by society toward its most vulnerable members. It raises questions about the role of medical and military institutions in perpetuating harmful practices and the importance of integrating human rights considerations into all areas of public policy. As we strive for a more inclusive world today, the lessons learned from the Aversion Project should guide our efforts in creating spaces where everyone can live authentically, free from fear and prejudice. In conclusion, the Aversion Project serves as a stark reminder of the lengths to which society can go in an attempt to control or cure human behavior. Its legacy is one of deep pain and suffering, but it also highlights the resilience of those who chose to reclaim their identities in the face of oppression. Recognizing and understanding such historical injustices is not merely an academic exercise. It is a fundamental aspect of building a future grounded in tolerance, respect, and equality for all. In the 1950s and 1960s, an operation known as Operation Midnight Climax was part of a larger covert initiative undertaken by the Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA, to explore the potential use of mind control techniques. This operation was not only intriguing, but also raised ethical questions that remain relevant to this day. At the heart of Operation Midnight Climax was a desire to investigate the effects of psychoactive drugs, particularly LSD, on human behavior. The U.S. government at that time was deeply engaged in the Cold War, and there was a growing concern about potential mind control techniques employed by adversaries such as the Soviet Union. To counter this perceived threat, the CIA sought to understand whether drugs could be used to manipulate individuals. To conduct these experiments in a clandestine manner, the CIA set up a series of safe houses in San Francisco and later in New York City. These locations were designed to look like ordinary apartments, but they were actually outfitted with one-way mirrors and hidden cameras. Inside these safe houses, CIA agents would observe the interactions between unwitting subjects and sex workers, who were hired to lure the subjects into the apartments. The agents would administer drugs to the subjects, often without their knowledge, and then closely monitor their behavior. The idea was to see how these individuals reacted under the influence of drugs like LSD, and whether the agency could learn something about eliciting confessions or controlling behavior. The choice of using sex workers was particularly controversial, as it raised significant moral and ethical issues. Many of the individuals targeted were not involved in any wrongdoing. They were often merely average citizens, caught in an experiment they had no knowledge of. As the agents observed the subjects, they noted various effects of the drugs on their mental states and behaviors. Some became disoriented or paranoid, while others experienced euphoria or hallucinations. One of the most notorious aspects of Operation Midnight Climax was its lack of informed consent. The subjects, who had no idea they were being studied, were essentially guinea pigs in a widely unpredictable environment. This element of exploitation has been criticized by many as a blatant violation of ethical standards in research. The operations raised questions about the limits of government authority and the responsibility to protect individual rights. The CIA believed that these experiments could lead to groundbreaking techniques in interrogation and mind control. However, despite the extensive amounts of money spent and the resources devoted, the operation did not yield the successful results the agency had hoped for. Ultimately, the unpredictability of human behavior under the influence of drugs and the inability to control the outcomes made the goals of Operation Midnight Climax largely unattainable. In the early 1970s, as public awareness of the CIA's activities began to grow, Operation Midnight Climax was brought to light, along with other programs linked to the agency's quest for psychological control. Investigative journalism, combined with public outrage, led to significant reforms in how government agencies conducted research, especially when it came to protecting the rights of individuals. As a result of these revelations, many of the practices used during Operation Midnight Climax were deemed unacceptable, leading to stricter regulations regarding human subject research. The importance of consent and ethical considerations became central tenets in research practices, underlining the principle that individuals should be fully informed about the nature and goals of any study they participate in. Today, Operation Midnight Climax remains a powerful example of the tension between national security and individual rights. It serves as a reminder of the lengths to which agencies may go in pursuit of information and the potential consequences of operating in the shadows. The lessons learned from this operation continue to resonate, particularly as modern technology opens new avenues for surveillance and data collection. It is crucial to reflect on this history and consider its implications for contemporary society. As we navigate the complexities of privacy, consent, and the role of government, the insights gained from Operation Midnight Climax can help inform our understanding of ethical boundaries in research and the protection of individual freedoms. In an era where the public is more aware of surveillance and coercive tactics, maintaining a balance between security interests and the rights of individuals has never been more important. As we ponder the implications of past events, we recognize that every action taken in the name of national security must be weighed carefully against its potential to undermine the very foundations of freedom and trust in society. The narrative of Operation Midnight Climax is not just about experimentation. It is a story of ethics, human dignity, and the ongoing struggle to uphold moral standards in the face of power. The legacy of this operation is a cautionary tale, reminding us to remain vigilant against the encroachment of authority that disregards individual rights. In conclusion, while the exploration of human consciousness enhances our understanding of the mind, it is vital that such inquiries are conducted with the utmost respect for human dignity and rights. The past reminds us that the methods used to gain knowledge should never come at an unacceptable cost to humanity. The lessons from Operation Midnight Climax invite us to consider the ethical frameworks necessary for future exploration and experimentation, ensuring that the shadows of history do not repeat themselves in our pursuit of progress. In the early 1970s, an intriguing study unfolded that would spark significant debate about psychiatric diagnoses and the reliability of mental health institutions. This study, known as the Rosenhan Experiment, was conducted by psychologist David Rosenhan, who aimed to investigate the validity of mental health diagnoses and the potential for misdiagnosis within psychiatric hospitals. At the core of the Rosenhan experiment were a series of bold assertions about the psychiatric field. Rosenhan and 7 other individuals, all of whom were mentally healthy and had no existing mental illnesses, decided to present themselves as patients in 12 different psychiatric hospitals across 5 states in the United States. They fabricated a simple yet effective narrative. They claimed to experience auditory hallucinations, specifically hearing voices that said words like empty, hollow, and thud. Aside from this singular symptom, they answered all other questions truthfully and confirmed that they had not experienced any other symptoms of mental illness. This deliberate deception was aimed at highlighting how vague and subjective psychiatric diagnoses can be. During the study, the quote, pseudopatients, as they were called, were admitted to various institutions where they were met with a wide array of responses. Despite the fact that they behaved completely normally after admission and even expressed their intent to leave, all but one of the pseudopatients were diagnosed with serious mental disorders. The diagnoses ranged from schizophrenia to bipolar disorder. The average time spent in these facilities was about 19 days, but the pseudopatients were released only after an average of 24 days, often receiving a diagnosis of schizophrenia in remission. This finding highlighted a critical question: how reliable are psychiatric diagnoses when even individuals feigning symptoms can be misdiagnosed and treated as mentally ill? One example from the experiment showcased the disheartening reality of psychiatric treatment. In one hospital, a pseudopatient reported that they felt perfectly fine and expressed a desire to leave. However, not only did staff members disregard these assertions, but they also interpreted the pseudopatient's behavior through the lens of their diagnoses. When a pseudopatient requested to be discharged, staff viewed it as a symptom of their supposed mental condition, rather than an expression of a healthy willingness to leave. The study also revealed how staff interactions often lacked empathy and understanding. Pseudopatients noted that they experienced minimal face-to-face contact with doctors and nurses. In several instances, they were met with indifference or dismissiveness. One of the more striking observations was that some staff members failed to engage with patients at all. The power dynamics in psychiatric hospitals were pronounced, with nurses and doctors wielding authority often without any meaningful interaction with patients. Upon the release of the experiment's findings, Rosenhan raised profound implications for the mental health profession. The results prompted a larger conversation about how institutions define mental illness and how societal perceptions can shape diagnoses. Questions arose regarding whether psychiatric institutions could distinguish between the mentally ill and those who were genuinely psychotic, and whether the tools used for assessment were adequate. The study received both acclaim and criticism. Some praised Rosenhan for shedding light on the shortcomings of mental health diagnosis, while others argued that the methods employed lacked scientific rigor. Critics suggested that a more robust study, with a rigorous design and clear metrics, would have further validated or invalidated the findings. Despite the controversy, the Rosenhan experiment played an essential role in bringing attention to the need for reform in mental health care. It urged institutions to reconsider how they interacted with patients and the standards by which they evaluated mental health. Hospitals began to implement training for staff to enhance their understanding of mental health conditions and improve interpersonal communication with patients. In conclusion, the Rosenhan experiment remains a landmark study that challenges the validity of psychiatric diagnoses and the very nature of mental health treatment. Its exploration of the gray areas within the mental health system continues to resonate today, reminding us that understanding mental health is a complex endeavor that requires compassion, open conversation, and ongoing reform. Through this lens, we can appreciate the journey of seeking clarity in mental health and the importance of critical examination in the treatments that shape individual lives. The Vipeholm experiments, conducted in Sweden during the 1940s and 1950s, present a fascinating and somewhat controversial chapter in the history of dental research. These studies were held at the Vipeholm Hospital, which primarily served individuals with intellectual disabilities. Researchers wanted to understand how different diets influence dental health, particularly with regard to cavity formation. Before delving into the specifics of these experiments, it's essential to recognize the broader significance of dental health research at that time. In the early to mid-20th century, the link between sugar consumption and dental cavities was beginning to gain attention. However, empirical research was still developing, and many aspects of diet-related dental health remained unclear. Researchers aimed to fill these gaps in knowledge, yet the methods they employed would today raise serious ethical questions. To study the effects of various sugars on dental health, researchers intentionally altered the diets of the patients at Vipeholm. The experimentation involved feeding these individuals an excessive amount of sugar-rich foods, including candies, syrup, and sweetened foods. This strategy was designed to create a controlled environment that could help scientists observe the resulting impact on oral health. Participants consumed large quantities of sugar in such a way that was unusual, and, for many, quite unhealthy. The researchers wanted to analyze how these dietary changes influenced the bacteria in the mouth, particularly Streptococcus mutans, known for its role in cavity development. It was observed that when sugar was consumed frequently, the acidity in the mouth increased, leading to higher rates of tooth decay. The researchers meticulously documented the responses and condition of the patients over time. They noted not only the rate of cavities but also the nature of the relationships between sugar consumption and various factors related to oral hygiene. In some instances, it was found that sugar consumption would often lead to rampant decay, particularly when combined with poor oral hygiene practices. The findings from these studies were significant. They established a clearer understanding of the relationship between sugar intake and dental caries, subsequently influencing public health messaging. Information gleaned from the Vipeholm experiments contributed to the establishment of guidelines around sugar consumption, especially for young children whose dental health was particularly vulnerable. Despite the valuable information gained, the Vipeholm experiments have been heavily scrutinized for ethical reasons. Many modern ethical standards emphasize the importance of informed consent, and the patients in these studies were not fully capable of providing informed consent due to their intellectual disabilities. This aspect of the study raises important questions about the ethics of research on vulnerable populations and the responsibility of researchers to protect their welfare. Moreover, the effects of such a high-sugar diet are seldom seen in modern dietary practices, where health consciousness and dental hygiene awareness have improved significantly. Today, there are widespread campaigns aimed at reducing sugar intake to promote dental health, reflecting a shift in public understanding shaped by the very findings derived from these experiments. Today, lessons drawn from the Vipeholm experiments continue to resonate in various fields, from dental research to ethics and medical studies. They remind us of the delicate balance between scientific inquiry and patient welfare. As we look back on these experiments, it's crucial to appreciate the progress made in both dental health understanding and ethical research practices. In essence, the Vipeholm experiments highlight the profound influence that diet has on dental health and the ongoing evolution of medical ethics. As we continue to learn about the complexities of health and well-being, the insights gained from such historical studies offer a foundation for contemporary practices and a reminder of our responsibility as a society to protect the most vulnerable among us. Reflecting on this history encourages curiosity and innovation in dental research, but always through a lens of ethical responsibility and care. This balance will ultimately guide future inquiries, ensuring that scientific exploration continues to benefit everyone while respecting their dignity and rights. Thus, as we learn from the past, we can move forward toward a healthier future for all, grounded in an understanding of both science and humanity. In the world of scientific exploration, there have been many unusual experiments conducted to understand animal behavior. One of the most bizarre and controversial studies took place in the 1960s, involving an elephant and the psychedelic substance known as LSD. This strange episode not only raised eyebrows but also opened discussions about ethics in animal research. The study initially aimed to investigate aggression in animals. Researchers were curious about the effects of LSD, a powerful hallucinogen, on the behavior of an elephant. The subject of this experiment was an elephant named Tuskegee. Tuskegee was a 36-year-old African elephant living in a zoo in Oklahoma. Researchers believed that by administering LSD, they could observe radical changes in Tuskegee's behavior, which might offer insights into aggression in both animals and humans. On the day of the experiment, Tuskegee was given a substantial dose of LSD, approximately 300 times the amount that would typically be administered to a human. The scientists anticipated that the hallucinogen would provoke some form of aggressive or unpredictable behavior. This experiment was influenced by contemporary research on how psychedelics could alter perception and behavior. The experimenters were in search of a deeper understanding of the links between mind-altering substances, aggression, and social interaction. As Tuskegee began to react to the LSD, the effects were immediate and intense. Instead of showing aggression, the elephant displayed a range of emotions and behaviors that were unexpected. He bellowed loudly and moved around his enclosure in a manner that puzzled the observers. Instead of aggression, Tuskegee became highly agitated, exhibiting signs of distress rather than the expected aggression. Researchers noted that his movements were erratic and that he seemed to be in a confused state, which was concerning for both the scientists and the animal's caretakers. As the effects of the drug unfolded, Tuskegee appeared to struggle with his surroundings. He began to engage in unusual behaviors, such as flapping his ears and vocalizing in a way not typical for elephants. Observers noted that he seemed disoriented, and there were moments of genuine panic as he reacted to stimuli that were not evident to the human observers. The researchers hypothesized that the LSD had upset his perception of reality, leading to a state of heightened sensitivity and confusion instead of aggression. The aftermath of this experiment prompted significant ethical debates. Critics argued that it was inhumane to subject an animal to such extreme conditions, especially considering the large dosage of LSD given to Tuskegee. Animal welfare advocates highlighted that the unnecessary distress and potential long-term effects on Tuskegee's mental health were unacceptable. This created a rift in the scientific community, where the thirst for knowledge began to clash with the standards of humane treatment in research. In the following days, the effects of the LSD on Tuskegee became a subject of intense scrutiny. While some researchers sought to document the physiological changes and behaviors of the elephant during the trial, others were more focused on the ethics surrounding such an approach. The need to understand animal behavior must be balanced against the obligation to ensure that these creatures are treated with respect and care. This incident ultimately served as a turning point in the field of animal research. It highlighted the necessity for stringent ethical guidelines and regulations regarding the treatment of animals in experiments. The scientific community began to reevaluate how they conducted research involving animals, focusing on more humane methods of study and the welfare of living beings. The fallout from the Tuskegee experiment led to increased awareness of ethical responsibilities and initiated conversations about the treatment of animals in laboratories and research facilities. The legacy of Tuskegee remains significant even decades later, reminding researchers and the public alike of the importance of conducting scientific experiments responsibly. While the quest for knowledge is essential, it must not come at the cost of an animal's well-being. The episode led to enhanced legislation in many countries, emphasizing the humane treatment of animals in research and ensuring that scientists take moral considerations into account. Tuskegee's ordeal highlights the complexities involved in understanding animal behavior. Even as researchers aim to uncover the mysteries of aggression and social dynamics, they inadvertently sparked a movement toward greater respect for animal rights. This pivotal moment in scientific history serves as a reminder of the power of curiosity and the potential consequences of disregarding ethical standards in the pursuit of knowledge. In retrospect, the experiment with Tuskegee seems to reflect the broader questions surrounding the boundaries of scientific inquiry. It emphasizes that while the drive for discovery is a crucial aspect of science, it should never overshadow the ethical implications of how that knowledge is pursued. As we continue to study the fascinating world of animals and their behaviors, let Tuskegee's story remind us to navigate these waters with care and responsibility. The relationship between humans and animals is delicate, and understanding it requires a balance between exploration and compassion. Himmelsdorf is a small, picturesque town located in the picturesque countryside, wrapped in a history that is both rich and intriguing. Among its many tales, one stands out, drawing interest not only from the local residents, but also from scientists and paranormal enthusiasts around the world. This is the story of the Himmelsdorf Poltergeist, an entity that has challenged our understanding of the natural world through unusual phenomena. It all began in the early 20th century when families in Himmelsdorf started reporting strange occurrences in their homes. Objects would move without any apparent reason, doors would open and close on their own, and eerie sounds echoed through the night. Initially dismissed as mere tricks of the mind, or overactive imaginations, the bizarre activities caught the attention of local historians, who quickly recognized a pattern. As the stories accumulated, so did the intrigues surrounding the events. In 1932, a pioneering scientist, Dr. Albert Stratt, arrived in Himmelsdorf with a determination to uncover the truth. With a background in physics and psychology, he approached the reports with credibility and caution. Dr. Stratt set up a series of controlled experiments in one of the homes believed to be the epicenter of the activity. His methodology was straightforward: document everything and explore every possibility. He placed a variety of objects around the house and set up cameras to capture any unexplained movements. Over the course of several weeks, the results were astonishing. Intricately arranged stacks of books would topple over without a breeze, and glassware would shift inexplicably off tables. Dr. Stratt recorded not just the events themselves, but also the environmental conditions, looking for patterns. He wanted to find out if there was a scientific explanation for what was happening, or if these phenomena challenged our current understandings of nature. What made the Himmelsdorf Poltergeist particularly captivating was the fact that noteworthy events often coincided with heightened emotional states. Families reported that the disturbances peaked during particularly stressful times or celebrations. For instance, during a wedding held in one of the local homes, attendees expressed unexpected feelings of lightheartedness paired with giggles and, moments later, laughter would echo through empty hallways as if someone else were joining the joyful atmosphere. This sparked Dr. Stratt's interest in the psychological aspects of the phenomena, highlighting the interconnectedness of mind and environment. The phenomenon appeared to create a dynamic reaction between the residents and the environment of the home. Dr. Stratt hypothesized that emotions carry a form of energy that may influence physical spaces. This intriguing idea led him to explore the relationship between human psyche and the natural world further. As more data came in, the idea of poltergeist translated from merely a ghostly presence to a complex interaction of emotional currents manifesting tangibly. Further studies introduced the involvement of technology, as scientists from various fields started joining the research. Electrical engineers examined potential electromagnetic fields that might explain the experiences. They found that fluctuations, although minute, correlated with the moments of intense activity. Coupling this with psychological data, the researchers were building a holistic overview of the Himmelsdorf Poltergeist. As the years rolled on, Himmelsdorf became a focal point for paranormal research. Scholars from various disciplines traveled to study the area, bringing with them advanced scientific equipment to capture anomalies. Infrared cameras, electromagnetic field detectors, and even sound recording devices were employed. The small town became bustling with curiosity, an intersection where science meets the metaphysical. To enrich the findings, Dr. Stratt enlisted local historians to delve deeper into the folklore of Himmelsdorf. They uncovered tales of love, conflict, and loss that filled the area's history, suggesting that the emotional weight of past events might be having lingering effects on the present. This aspect shone a new light on the research, indicating that the poltergeist phenomenon wasn't random, but rather a tapestry woven from the community's collective emotional fabric. The culmination of the research painted a complex picture. While skeptics dismissed the phenomenon as a figment of imagination or mere coincidence, the majority of scientists involved recognized that these experiences were real to those who lived them. The lasting impact of the Himmelsdorf Poltergeist wasn't solely about proving the existence of a ghostly presence, but challenging our understanding of reality itself. In the end, the work of Dr. Stratt and his colleagues inspired future studies that bridged the gap between psychology, physics, and folklore, illuminating the myriad ways in which human beings interact with their surroundings. While the tales of the Himmelsdorf Poltergeist may be steeped in mystery, they open the door to deeper questions about consciousness, perception, and the very nature of reality. Today, Himmelsdorf remains a point of curiosity and a reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary phenomena lie at the intersection of science and the soulful echoes of our human experience. Biosphere 2 is a fascinating experiment located in Tucson, Arizona, designed to explore the potential of self-contained ecosystems and our understanding of ecological balance. It was launched in the early 1990s and represents a unique endeavor to create an artificial environment that mimics Earth's ecosystems. This enormous structure covers approximately 3.14 acres and houses various biomes, including a rainforest, desert, ocean, and a savanna. Each of these biomes serves as a laboratory to study how living organisms interact with one another and their environment. The name Biosphere 2 feet refers to the idea that it is a second Earth, or Biosphere 1, from which we learn valuable lessons. The goal was to create a closed ecological system where all necessary elements for life, such as air, water, and nutrients, were contained within the structure. Scientists commenced the project with the hypothesis that they could create an ecosystem that could sustain human life for an extended period while maintaining balance among its various components. The first major experiment within Biosphere 2 took place from 1991 to 1993, during which 8 individuals lived in the facility for 2 years. These biospherians aimed to demonstrate that human life could be self-sustained in a closed ecosystem. They had to grow their own food, recycle water, and manage the oxygen levels within the environment. This experiment faced numerous challenges that highlighted the complexities of maintaining ecological balance. For example, it quickly became apparent that the interactions among different species and their habitats were far more complicated than anticipated. The ecosystem experienced fluctuations in different areas, particularly in carbon dioxide and oxygen levels. This imbalance was partly due to unforeseen events, like the overgrowth of certain plants which consumed too much oxygen, creating stress for the human occupants. They had to develop innovative ways to manage these challenges, including adjusting their diets based on crop yields and monitoring the various biomes. One compelling aspect of the Biosphere 2 experiment was its emphasis on plant life. The rainforest and agricultural systems relied heavily on plant growth, which was intricately linked to the health of the entire ecosystem. The plants not only provided food, but also played a crucial role in regulating the carbon and oxygen levels necessary for survival. Researchers observed that certain established agricultural practices, typically used in traditional farming, did not apply under closed conditions. This prompted new methods of cultivation and pest management tailored for a limited resource environment. Moreover, the experiment highlighted the importance of biodiversity. The presence of various species contributed to the resilience of the ecosystem. For instance, diverse plant species attracted different insects, which in turn supported a wide range of animals. Without this biodiversity, the delicate balance that allowed Biosphere 2 to function effectively was compromised. It reinforced the understanding that biodiversity is vital for ecological stability, revealing lessons applicable to natural ecosystems on Earth. Another interesting phenomenon observed was the role of water in the biosphere. Water management became a crucial focus, as it was essential for all life inside the structure. This included maintaining appropriate levels of humidity in the rainforest, managing irrigation for crops, and ensuring the proper balance in the ocean biome. As researchers monitored the water cycles within Biosphere 2, they discovered the significance of evaporation, condensation, and precipitation, mirroring the natural water cycle on Earth. This insight provided valuable information on how ecosystems interact with water in various climates. The knowledge gained from the Biosphere 2 experiments did not solely focus on scientific findings. It inspired broader discussions about sustainability and our planet's future. The challenges faced by biospherians mirrored those confronting humanity, such as resource management, ecological degradation, and climate change. The experiments served as a reminder that we must understand and cooperate with natural systems to ensure our survival. As time progressed, continued enhancements and research allowed for deeper insights into the functioning of complex ecosystems. Additional studies explored how artificial ecosystems could inform conservation efforts and promote sustainable living practices. Biosphere 2 evolved into a center for research and education, transforming into a living laboratory where scientists and students could study ecological principles directly. Despite the complications encountered during the initial experiments, Biosphere 2 provided groundbreaking educational experiences and increased awareness of the intricate network that supports life on Earth. The long-term observation and study of this artificial ecosystem carved a path toward comprehending how ecosystems operate and adapt over time. Ultimately, the lessons taken from Biosphere 2 extend far beyond its walls. They encourage a deeper appreciation for the natural world and the relationships between different organisms and habitats. Understanding how to nurture ecological balance has profound implications for our planet's health. As we contemplate the future of Earth's ecosystems, lessons derived from Biosphere 2 continue to resonate, reminding us of the significance of harmony within nature. Our ongoing journey to appreciate and protect complex ecosystems remains a vital endeavor in shaping a sustainable future for generations to come. In the mid-20th century, the United States military undertook a series of experiments that would reveal both the potential and the perils of using biological agents in warfare. One of the most intriguing and controversial projects was known as Operation Big Buzz, an endeavor focused on the dispersal of mosquitoes as a means of biological warfare. This operation was part of a larger suite of biological testing that sought to understand how certain agents could be deployed in combat situations. Operation Big Buzz was initiated in the summer of 1955. The primary goal was to study how mosquitoes could potentially be used to spread disease among enemy populations. The concept was built on the premise that mosquitoes, as carriers of various pathogens, could be part of a military strategy to weaken an adversary. The idea of utilizing insects in warfare taps into a much older understanding of nature's potential weapons, where the smallest creatures could create chaos among larger populations. To execute Operation Big Buzz, military researchers selected the Aedes aegypti mosquito, known to transmit diseases such as yellow fever and dengue. Utilizing this specific mosquito made sense due to its adaptability and presence in various regions where combat might occur. The initial stages of the operation involved breeding vast amounts of these insects to ensure readiness for the trials. The operation kicked off with field tests conducted in the state of Georgia. Large-scale releases of mosquitoes were conducted to observe their dispersal patterns. Researchers were curious about how effective these mosquitoes would be in traveling over distances and mingling with local populations. The purpose behind these tests was not only to track how the mosquitoes behaved, but also to analyze how diseases could spawn in regions previously unaffected. The military was aware of the potential dangers of such an undertaking. There were significant ethical concerns surrounding the use of living organisms as weapons. However, in the context of the Cold War, the urgency to explore unconventional warfare methods prompted military leaders to overlook these ethical dilemmas. They believed that the use of biological agents, especially ones that relied on the natural spread through insects, could be a game-changer in military strategy. During these trials, the researchers monitored the environment meticulously. Observations included how well the mosquitoes survived, their ability to breed, and how successfully they infiltrated local ecosystems. They wanted to gather data on how long the mosquitoes could live in the wild after being released, and how they interacted with existing populations of insects. One particularly fascinating aspect of Operation Big Buzz was the planning of the dispersal methods. The idea was to deploy these mosquitoes from aircraft, similar to how one might drop a bomb. Substantive plans were developed to use aerosol techniques to ensure that the mosquitoes would be spread evenly across a targeted area. The notion was to create a fine mist of mosquitoes that would settle over enemy territory, effectively spreading the potential for disease outbreaks. Despite the innovative approaches and thorough planning, the operation faced several challenges. Environmental conditions, such as temperature and humidity, significantly impacted the mosquito's survival and behavioral patterns. Additionally, researchers could not accurately predict how the local populations would respond or adapt to an influx of mosquitoes. The unpredictability of nature made the military's ambition of using biological agents through insects a complex challenge. In evaluating the outcomes of Operation Big Buzz, it became clear that the risks associated with such biological warfare were considerable. There were concerns about the collateral damage, not just to enemy populations but also to civilians and local ecosystems. The possibility of an outbreak affecting friendly forces, or even returning to impact the United States, created a myriad of practical and ethical questions. In the end, while Operation Big Buzz did provide valuable data and insights into the behavior of mosquitoes, it also underscored the complexities and potential consequences of using biological agents in warfare. The operation was not widely publicized at the time, and its implications were largely overshadowed by other military developments during the Cold War era. As history progressed, the lessons learned from Operation Big Buzz contributed to a more cautious approach to biological warfare. Today, as we reflect on this unique chapter of military history, it reminds us of the intricate intersections between nature, science, and the ethical considerations of warfare. The lessons derived from such operations serve as a reminder of humanity's responsibility in wielding the power of nature, balancing the potential for innovation with the necessity of ethical stewardship. The legacy of Operation Big Buzz persists in how we approach biological research and deployment strategies, ensuring that the past guides future endeavors in all realms of science and military tactics. The Compass Group experiment provides intriguing insights into how biases can shape decision-making. Conducted in a structured environment, this research aimed to explore the cognitive processes involved in judgments and the various biases that can distort our choices. The Compass Group experiment focused on a variety of behavioral tests to better understand how people make decisions under different circumstances. One of the key aspects explored in the experiment was the influence of social dynamics on decision-making. Participants were observed as they made choices in groups, revealing how the opinions of peers can significantly sway individual judgments. For instance, when a person in the group expressed a strong opinion, others often conformed, even if they had differing views. This phenomenon is known as groupthink, and illustrates how our desire for harmony can lead to a suppression of personal beliefs. Additionally, the experiment touched upon confirmation bias, where individuals tend to favor information that supports their existing beliefs while dismissing contradictory evidence. During the tests, participants were given scenarios that required them to evaluate evidence and make choices. Interestingly, many would lean towards information that confirmed their initial thoughts, neglecting valuable insights that could have led to different conclusions. This bias demonstrates not only how our own preferences can skew our understanding, but also how critical it is to remain open-minded. Another fascinating area covered by the Compass Group experiment was the impact of framing effects on decision-making. The way information is presented can significantly affect people's choices. For example, when faced with a scenario about medical treatments, groups were provided with two different descriptions. One framed in a positive light, emphasizing survival rates, while the other highlighted risks. The variation in presentation led to notably different choices, illustrating that even subtle changes in wording can lead to vastly different decisions. The experiment also examined the role of time pressure in decision-making. Participants were put in situations where they had limited time to make choices about resources, investments, and situations requiring moral judgment. Under time constraints, biases became more pronounced. Decisions tended to skew towards immediate rewards rather than long-term benefits, indicating how urgency can cloud judgment and promote impulsive behaviors. Moreover, anchoring bias was another critical focus in these tests. Participants encountered scenarios where initial information served as a reference point for subsequent decisions. Even when irrelevant, this initial anchor distorted the final choice. For instance, when asked to estimate the value of an unfamiliar object after being shown a high or low number, participants' estimates were influenced by that initial figure, regardless of its actual relevance. The diversity of participants in the study provided a rich tapestry of perspectives, highlighting how cultural and individual differences can also impact decision-making biases. Personal backgrounds, education, and experiences all play a role in shaping how someone approaches choice. By analyzing a wide array of demographics, the researchers uncovered that biases are not only universal, but can also be influenced by personal narratives. Critical thinking and reflection were also integral components of the experiment. Participants were encouraged to examine their own decision-making processes and recognize moments when biases might have swayed their choices. This introspection is essential for fostering awareness and developing strategies to mitigate biases in the future. Furthermore, the findings from the Compass Group experiment hold significant implications for various sectors, including business, healthcare, and education. Understanding the biases that influence decision-making can empower organizations to make more informed choices. For instance, in a business context, leaders who recognize confirmation bias can seek diverse opinions and data sources before making strategic plans, potentially leading to more successful outcomes. In healthcare, recognizing how framing effects impact patient choices can lead to better communication between doctors and patients. By presenting information more neutrally, healthcare providers can help patients make more informed decisions about their treatment options. Ultimately, the Compass Group experiment underscores the complexity of human decision-making and the pervasive impact of biases. By shedding light on these influences, individuals and organizations can work towards fostering more rational and informed decision-making processes. This experiment serves as a valuable reminder that it is essential to remain vigilant about the biases that shape our judgments and to seek out diverse perspectives in our choices. Understanding the intricate web of factors that influence decisions fosters not only personal growth, but also a richer, more inclusive decision-making environment. Remember that decisions are influenced by many elements, and being aware of these can empower us to grow and make better choices in all aspects of our lives. In the world of economics, markets are fascinating ecosystems where buyers and sellers interact, and prices are determined by a variety of factors. One method that researchers and economists use to understand these dynamics is through what are known as consignment experiments. These experiments allow economists to observe how market behavior unfolds in real time, providing valuable insights into pricing mechanisms and market efficiency. Consignment experiments involve a scenario where sellers provide goods to a marketplace without receiving immediate payment. Instead, they agree to let their products be sold by a third party, typically an intermediary or a platform, which takes a percentage of the sales as compensation. This setup creates an intriguing environment to study market dynamics, since it simulates many real-world conditions while allowing for controlled experimentation. One of the key features of consignment experiments is the flexibility they offer in terms of pricing strategies. For instance, sellers may have the option to set their prices, or allow the intermediaries to set them based on current market demand. This setting prompts a multitude of questions. How do sellers decide on their pricing? What role does consumer behavior play in the success of different pricing strategies? By manipulating these variables, researchers can uncover trends and patterns that reveal not just how individual behaviors affect sales, but how they interact with broader market phenomena. Consider a scenario in which a group of sellers provides various types of artwork for a consignment sale. Each seller can choose to price their artwork based on similar items previously sold, or decide to set a unique price, hoping to carve out a niche. The intermediary, in this case, might adjust prices based on demand observed from potential buyers, creating a dynamic interplay between supply, demand, and pricing. Through these experiments, researchers often discover that price signals can significantly influence consumer purchasing behavior. For example, buyers may be more inclined to purchase an item if they perceive it to be a good deal compared to its competitors. Conversely, products priced too highly may detour interest, leading to a surplus of unsold inventory. This observation is vital, as it highlights the importance of perceived value in market transactions. Another intriguing aspect of consignment experiments is the impact of information asymmetry. In traditional markets, sellers often have more information about their products than buyers do. However, in a consignment setting, the intermediary can provide additional information, thereby leveling the playing field. For instance, if a seller offers a set of handmade mugs, but the buyers are unaware of their craftsmanship, the intermediary can play a crucial role in conveying the story behind the product. When buyers feel informed about what they're purchasing, they may be more willing to pay a higher price. Moreover, consignment experiments can provide insights into how competition affects pricing. Imagine a scenario where multiple sellers offer similar products in a consignment arrangement. Researchers can analyze how these sellers react to one another's pricing decisions. If one seller lowers their prices, do others follow suit, or do they risk losing sales? This potential for competitive behavior contributes to our understanding of market dynamics and can illustrate economic theories such as the Nash equilibrium, where players opt for strategies that consider the choices of other participants in the market. In addition to direct pricing and competition, consignment experiments often illuminate the effects of external factors on market dynamics. Seasonal variations, economic shifts, and even cultural trends can all influence consumer preferences and subsequently pricing strategies. Imagine an experiment that spans several months, analyzing how holiday seasons affect prices in a consignment market. Sellers may choose to increase prices during high-demand periods, expecting buyers are willing to pay more for certain items during festive times. Through these diverse insights, researchers can not only deepen their understanding of pricing mechanisms, but also develop better models for predicting market behavior. By simulating real-world context through consignment experiments, economists can evaluate strategies that maximize sales, optimize pricing, and ultimately enhance market efficiency. Furthermore, these experiments extend their implications beyond simple pricing strategies. They also serve as a valuable tool in training future economists, entrepreneurs, and market analysts. Participants in such experiments gain first-hand experience in decision-making under uncertainty, learning how their actions can influence market outcomes. In conclusion, consignment experiments represent a powerful method of studying market dynamics and pricing mechanisms. By simulating environments that reflect real-world market conditions, these experiments provide a wealth of information about consumer behavior, competitive strategies, and the role of information in transactions. As researchers continue to explore this fascinating area, they contribute significantly to our understanding of economics, helping shape future markets and the ways in which goods and services are exchanged. Through these insights, we gain a clearer picture of how interconnected actions within a market can lead to broader economic implications, making it a rich area worth exploring. In the spring of 1913, a groundbreaking performance at the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées in Paris changed the landscape of music and art forever. Igor Stravinsky's ballet, The Rite of Spring, was not just a musical composition. It was a radical reinvention of rhythm, harmony, and the very essence of what music could evoke in a live audience. This performance sparked what has gone down in history as one of the most famous riots in the realm of the performing arts, offering a unique lens through which to explore crowd psychology and the dynamics of group behavior in response to music. To understand the events of that night, we need to journey back to the early 20th century. The world was experiencing rapid social change and artistic innovation. Traditional norms were being challenged by modernist movements, and this ballet was a prime example of that shift. The music itself defied convention, with dissonant chords, irregular rhythms, and a distinct lack of melody that many in the audience struggled to comprehend. Stravinsky's ambitious score was meant to evoke the raw and primal forces of nature, celebrating fertility and the rituals associated with the arrival of spring. Yet, for many listeners accustomed to the smooth, flowing melodies of classical music, the experience was jarring. As the performance began, the audience was a mixture of curious art enthusiasts, traditionalists, and some well-known figures of the day. However, as the dissonance unfolded, their reactions varied widely. Some were captivated by the innovative style, while others felt a profound sense of discomfort. This divergence in response can illuminate the intricate way music affects emotions and stimulates group dynamics. At a foundational level, music has an extraordinary capacity to elicit emotional reactions, and the Rite of Spring was no exception. Research in crowd psychology has shown that people are influenced by the emotions of those around them. In this case, the tension building among disapproving audience members led to a contagion effect, where dissenting voices grew louder. The reactions transitioned from murmurings of confusion to open hostility as the performance progressed. When the first strains of Stravinsky's score filled the theater, the audience was plunged into an intense emotional experience, conflicting feelings alternating between confusion, admiration, and agitation. The ballet's choreography, created by Václav Nijinsky, paired perfectly with this jarring music. It featured angular movements and unconventional steps that mirrored the dissonance in Stravinsky's composition. As dancers leaped and contorted their bodies in ways that defied traditional ballet norms, the audience struggled to process the clash between the familiar and the avant-garde. The collective emotional responses of the audience reached a breaking point. The atmosphere grew electric as voices rose in protest. Some cheered for the radical artistry, while others shouted insults and demanded the performance halt. The theater became a microcosm of society, showcasing how quickly a shared experience can spiral into chaos when faced with unexpected stimuli. The spontaneous eruption of emotions created a dynamic interplay between individual reactions and the collective mood, illustrating how social identity can influence behavior in a crowd. Amidst the turmoil, the orchestra continued to play, unfazed by the upheaval taking place in the audience. The musicians were likely aware of the history being made, yet they remained locked into Stravinsky's complex score. This moment highlights another fascinating aspect of crowd dynamics: how groups often react without a clear leader or cohesion. The audience was fragmented, driven by individual impulses rather than a unified front. Within the wider context of psychology, we can observe how social phenomena, like the riot surrounding the Rite of Spring, can parallel other collective behaviors in society today. Groups often act in unpredictable ways, showcasing how emotions can amplify within a crowd. The reactions at the performance also raised questions about conformity and rebellion, as audience members grappled with their values and preferences. The legacy of the riot extends beyond that fateful night in 1913. The avant-garde nature of the Rite of Spring has earned it a revered place in both music and dance history. It has challenged generations of artists and composers to push boundaries and rethink artistic expression. The incident also serves as a reminder that art has the power to provoke, offend, or inspire, pushing audiences out of their comfort zones. Exploring the dynamics of that historic performance uncovers deep insights into human behavior, collective emotions, and the interactions that shape our experiences in communal settings. It illustrates how art can serve as a catalyst for both chaos and unity, and how people's responses can shift dramatically in the shared context of a live performance. In conclusion, the events surrounding the premiere of The Rite of Spring stand as a fascinating case study in understanding riot dynamics and crowd psychology through music. This incident demonstrates the profound ways in which an art form can provoke reactions that transcend mere appreciation or disdain. It invites us to reflect on how art continually intersects with our emotions, beliefs, and societal structures, allowing for a richer exploration of what it means to gather, to feel, and to respond collectively. In the early 1950s, the United States Navy was involved in a series of experiments that aimed to understand the capabilities of biological agents and how they disperse in urban environments. This operation, known as Operation Sea Spray, took place primarily in San Francisco, California, and it was one of the first times that large-scale biological testing was conducted on a civilian population without their awareness. The primary goal of Operation Sea Spray was to examine the dispersal patterns of biological agents in a city setting. The Navy chose San Francisco for its unique geographic layout and dense population, which provided an ideal environment to observe how pathogens might spread in a real-world scenario. The operation began in September of 1950 and lasted for several days. During this time, the military released a harmless strain of bacteria called Serratia marcescens into the atmosphere. This bacterium is known for its ability to thrive in moist conditions and could be found in soil and water, making it a fitting choice for the study. As the Navy conducted the operation, low-flying aircraft were utilized to spray the bacteria over various parts of San Francisco. The choice of a real city for the experiments raised significant ethical concerns, as the residents were completely unaware of the operations taking place overhead. The Navy was primarily interested in the data collected on how the bacteria dispersed in the wind and how it would interact with the environment and the population. During the testing, it was noted that the bacteria traveled farther distances than anticipated, which proved to be a crucial finding in understanding the potential spread of biological agents. In conjunction with the airborne release, the Navy also sent teams to gather samples from the area to determine how much of the bacteria had settled and to identify any patterns in its distribution. Reports indicated that the bacteria were found as far as 27 miles from the initial point of release. Not only did this demonstrate the effectiveness with which the bacteria dispersed, but it also illuminated the potential risks associated with biological warfare in populated areas. While the Navy had conducted research under the guise of studying biological agents, the experiment did lead to unintended consequences. Some residents of San Francisco reported unusual health issues following the operation, which raised questions about the safety and ethics of conducting such an experiment on unsuspecting civilians. Health officials later had to address concerns regarding illnesses that might have been linked to the operation, although it was determined that the strains used were not harmful to the general population. The implications of Operation Sea Spray were significant for the military and government agencies involved, as lessons learned from this project helped shape future biosecurity measures and public health responses. The operation underscored the need for transparency and ethical considerations in scientific experimentation, especially when it involves human subjects. Following the fallout from Sea Spray, stricter regulations were established regarding biological testing, especially concerning public awareness and consent. In the years following Operation Sea Spray, the practice of testing biological agents in populated areas became significantly more scrutinized. The government began to recognize the delicate balance between testing for defense purposes and ensuring the safety and rights of its citizens. This shift in perspective helped to establish more robust guidelines for involving civilian populations in any future research activities. Today, the legacy of Operation Sea Spray serves as a cautionary tale about the ethical implications of scientific experiments and the importance of public trust in governmental activities. Understanding the decisions made in the past helps to inform current practices related to public health and bioethics. As technologically advanced as modern science has become, the need for ethical frameworks continues to be paramount, ensuring that the lessons learned from past experiments are not forgotten. In retrospect, Operation Sea Spray is not just a chapter in military history. It is a profound example of the need for accountability and the integration of ethical standards in research. The intention may have been to enhance national security, but the consequences remind us of the importance of respect for human life and the environment. By reflecting on these types of operations, society can strive to ensure that science serves as a tool for the betterment of humanity, rather than an avenue for unintended harm. This understanding fosters a culture of responsibility that is essential as we navigate the complexities of science and ethics in our rapidly evolving world. Facial expressions are an essential part of human communication. They convey a wide range of emotions without the need for words, allowing us to understand how others feel, even from a distance. One interesting study in this field is the Landis facial expression study, which attempts to correlate specific facial expressions with certain emotions. The study was conducted in the early 20th century by psychologist L. Landis. He aimed to explore how emotions could be communicated through facial movements and expressions. Landis believed that by observing these expressions, he could link them to specific emotional states, such as joy, sadness, anger, fear, surprise, and disgust. This connection is not just fascinating, it touches on the very core of human interaction and understanding. Imagine a scenario where someone receives a surprise gift. The immediate reaction often includes wide eyes, raised eyebrows, and a broad smile. These facial changes are not random. They represent a burst of joy and excitement. Landis's work suggested that this type of expression is universal, meaning individuals from different cultures tend to exhibit similar facial reactions to the same emotional stimuli. On the other hand, consider the expression of fear. When faced with a frightening situation, people often widen their eyes, raise their eyebrows, and open their mouths slightly. This expression prepares the body to react to a threat, a concept that taps into our evolutionary psychology. Understanding these expressions can help in recognizing how individuals might respond in stressful or dangerous situations. Landis also examined negative emotions, such as anger and disgust. When someone is angry, their eyebrows may lower and come together, their lips might tighten, and their nostrils may flare. This physical manifestation serves not only as an expression, but also as a warning to others about their emotional state. Similarly, disgust can be displayed through wrinkling the nose and pursing the lips, often in reaction to unpleasant or offensive stimuli. One key aspect of the Landis facial expression study is its emphasis on the idea that facial expressions are not just learned behaviors, but are instead deeply rooted in our biology. For instance, even individuals who are born blind and have never seen another person's face exhibit similar facial expressions. This indicates that the ability to express emotions through facial movements is innate, driven by our shared human experience. Landis's research utilized methods that included both observation and experimentation. He recorded various facial expressions in response to different emotional stimuli. Participants would be shown images, or they would hear sounds designed to evoke specific feelings, and researchers would observe their facial reactions closely. This approach provided a wealth of data on how emotions manifest physically, offering insights into the complexities of human psychology. Another fascinating component of this study is its implications for understanding interpersonal dynamics. For example, when two people converse, their ability to read each other's facial expressions can significantly guide the flow of the interaction. A smile can signal openness, while a frown might indicate discomfort or disagreement. The clarity with which we can interpret these expressions often enhances the quality of our relationships and communication. In recent years, many researchers have built upon Landis's foundational work, delving deeper into the nuances of facial expressions. Advanced technology, such as facial recognition software, has emerged, helping scientists study emotional expressions with greater precision. These analyses can contribute to various fields, including psychology, marketing, and artificial intelligence, providing valuable insights into consumer behavior and emotional recognition. Additionally, understanding facial expressions can also play a crucial role in enhancing empathy. When we learn to recognize the emotions of others through their facial expressions, we are better equipped to respond with compassion and understanding. This aspect of emotional intelligence is vital in numerous domains, including education, healthcare, and even leadership, where the ability to connect with others on an emotional level is paramount. The ideas presented in the Landis facial expression study remain relevant today. The awareness that facial expressions convey potent emotional signals can foster deeper connections among individuals. Whether interacting with friends, family, or colleagues, recognizing and responding to these nonverbal cues enriches our social experience and promotes a greater sense of understanding. The exploration of emotions through facial expressions offers not only academic intrigue, but also practical applications in daily life. As we navigate the complexities of social interactions, being attuned to the subtle shifts in expression can guide our responses and enrich our relationships. Overall, the study of facial expressions presents a captivating glimpse into the intricate world of human emotions and the unspoken language that we all share. This exploration invites us to appreciate the depth of communication that our faces provide, encouraging us to be more mindful of how we express and interpret emotions in the world around us. The Marshall Islands, a remote collection of islands in the Central Pacific Ocean, have often been overshadowed in global discussions about nuclear testing and its aftermath. Among the various projects aimed at understanding the impact of radioactive fallout, Project 4.1 stands out. This project was initiated, following the United States' extensive nuclear testing program in the region during the 1940s and 1950s. The goal was to study the health and environmental impacts of radiation on the local population. During this period, the U.S. government conducted numerous tests, culminating in some of the most powerful nuclear detonations ever, including the infamous Castle Bravo test in 1954. This test, while intended to assess the capabilities of thermonuclear weapons, inadvertently exposed both military personnel and local residents to dangerous levels of radiation. The fallout from these explosions didn't just vanish, it settled across vast areas, contaminating land, water, and the very air the residents breathed. As concerns grew about the health effects on the Marshallese people, Project 4.1 was developed. Its inception stemmed from a need to scientifically assess how exposure to radioactive materials had impacted the health of the islanders. This project was not just about studying individuals. It aimed to capture a comprehensive understanding of the widespread consequences of nuclear fallout on entire communities. Researchers sought to elaborate on various health outcomes associated with radiation exposure. They focused on conditions such as cancer, thyroid diseases, and other illnesses that could be linked to the radiation levels encountered by the local populace. By examining medical records, conducting health surveys, and performing physical examinations, scientists gathered crucial data that could reveal patterns and correlations. One of the most alarming aspects uncovered by the research was the increased incidence of thyroid cancer among the Marshallese. The thyroid gland, which is sensitive to radiation, was particularly affected due to the absorption of radioactive iodine. This finding was not only pivotal for understanding the health impacts on this specific population, but also raised concerns about similar exposures in other communities worldwide, affected by nuclear testing and radioactive materials. Moreover, the project emphasized the importance of community involvement. Researchers recognized that the local population needed to be informed and engaged throughout the study process. They aimed to create a collaborative environment where the voice of the residents was heard. This approach highlighted an ethical dimension to scientific research, stressing how vulnerable communities should be included in discussions that directly impact their lives and health. Over time, the findings of Project 4.1 catalyzed broader conversations about radiation exposure and health risks, not only in the Marshall Islands but globally. Reports from the project informed policy discussions, underscoring the crucial link between scientific inquiry and public health awareness. Additionally, the responses to the uncovered data led to changes in how the U.S. managed environmental issues in former test sites, as well as improvements in healthcare provisions for the islanders. In essence, Project 4.1 stands as a testament to the importance of scientific studies in understanding the legacies of nuclear testing. It serves as a reminder of the complexities involved when human lives intersect with scientific exploration and national policies. This project has legacy implications extending beyond the Marshall Islands, as it underscores the necessity for vigilance and responsibility in managing and addressing the effects of past actions, particularly in vulnerable populations. As we reflect on the outcomes of the project, we acknowledge the resilience of the Marshallese people who have faced extraordinary challenges in the wake of environmental calamities. Their stories and experiences are vital in shaping narratives about nuclear energy, environmental justice, and healthcare access. The ongoing implications of Project 4.1 continue to inform our understanding of how to address the past while safeguarding the future for those affected by such decisions. Ultimately, the journey of Project 4.1 reminds us of the interconnectedness of science, ethics, and human experience. It encourages us to think critically about the consequences of our choices and to remain cognizant of the voices that often go unheard in the discussions that shape our world. In doing so, we foster a deeper compassion for those who have endured the repercussions of nuclear fallout, and we commit to seeking solutions that prioritize health, well-being, and justice for all. In the early 20th century, a psychologist named Harry Harlow conducted groundbreaking research that delved into the emotional world of primates, particularly focusing on the impacts of isolation and maternal deprivation. Harlow is perhaps best known for his experiments with rhesus monkeys, which shed light on the profound effects of social isolation on mental health. One of his most infamous studies involved what he referred to as the, quote, pit of despair. Harlow's work began when he became interested in the nature of love and attachment. He was particularly concerned about how maternal separation could affect the development of young monkeys. Initially, he conducted tests with mother monkeys and infants, demonstrating that contact comfort was vital. The baby monkeys preferred to cling to soft, fluffy surrogate mothers made of cloth rather than cold metal ones that only offered food. This finding was pivotal as it emphasized that emotional security and nurturing was as essential as physical needs. However, Harlow's exploration did not stop there. Wanting to push the boundaries of understanding the effects of social separation further, he designed a series of experiments using a more drastic approach, what would later be known as the pit of despair. This apparatus was essentially a cage that isolated young monkeys to investigate the consequences of extreme social deprivation. The pit of despair was a stark, confined space that prevented the monkeys from interacting with one another. It had high walls that made it impossible for the monkeys to escape and offered no opportunities for the social interactions that are crucial for emotional development. In this isolated environment, the monkeys spent prolonged stretches of time, often displaying signs of extreme psychological distress. This led Harlow to observe behaviors that were troubling and unsettling. In the pit, these young monkeys exhibited a range of maladaptive behaviors. They became withdrawn and apathetic, often curling up in a ball or rocking back and forth. The monkeys also displayed signs of what we might recognize as depression, with a noticeable loss of interest in their surroundings and an absence of playful behavior. Harlow recorded these changes meticulously and documented the suffering these isolated monkeys experienced without the warmth and comfort of social bonds. In one poignant observation, after spending a year in the pit of despair, the monkeys often came out profoundly changed. Harlow's research indicated that even when the monkeys were eventually reintroduced to their peers, they struggled to form normal social connections. Some would even exhibit aggressive behavior or become overly submissive, unable to integrate back into social settings where they were meant to thrive. Harlow's work raised important ethical questions regarding animal testing and the lengths researchers could go to understand complex emotional issues. While his findings were critical in shaping our knowledge of social and emotional development, they also sparked significant debates about the morality of subjecting animals to distress for the sake of research. Over time, Harlow became aware of the repercussions his studies had on the monkeys involved, and he later expressed regret for some of the methods employed. The implications of Harlow's research extend to our understanding of humans as well. It is widely recognized that social bonds are crucial to our mental health. The isolation that the monkeys experienced mirrored the detrimental effects of loneliness that can occur in people, highlighting the necessity of community and connection in our lives. Harlow's experiments were fundamental in establishing that emotional health is as vital as physical health. They contributed to the development of theories surrounding attachment and the importance of nurturing relationships. The research influenced not just psychology and psychiatry, but also education and child-rearing practices, illuminating the role that love and bonding play in fostering well-adjusted individuals. As we reflect on Harlow's legacy, it serves as a catalyst for ongoing discussions about mental health, societal structures, and the need for compassion and understanding in both human and animal welfare. The stories of those primates in the pit of despair are reminders of the profound importance of connection, echoing through the decades and inspiring modern studies in the realms of psychology and social sciences. In essence, the pit of despair was not merely an experiment, but a powerful narrative on the importance of relationship and community, illustrating the dangers of disconnection and the desperate need for interaction. Through Harlow's pioneering yet controversial work, we gained invaluable insights into the delicate balance of emotional well-being, which continues to resonate with us today. His journey into the depths of despair and its consequences reminds us that emotional nurturing is just as essential to our existence as any other fundamental need. Ultimately, Harlow's research opened doors for further exploration into the complexities of love, attachment, and the importance of interpersonal relationships in shaping minds and character. In the early 19th century, a young physician named Stubbins Ffirth embarked on an unusual and controversial scientific journey. His fascination with yellow fever, a disease that had claimed countless lives, sparked a series of personal experiments aimed at understanding its nature. This was an era when the concept of contagion was still developing, and many contagious diseases caused widespread fear and misunderstanding. Ffirth, feeling confident in his theories, sought to challenge prevailing notions about the disease. Ffirth's curiosity about yellow fever grew during a devastating outbreak in his hometown of Philadelphia in 1793. The chaos surrounding the epidemic led to mass panic, and many fled the city, fearing for their lives. Observing the fear and the impact of the disease on society, Ffirth became determined to investigate the nature of yellow fever himself. He believed there was a lack of evidence supporting the idea that yellow fever was contagious from person to person. Instead, he thought it was linked to environmental factors such as climate, geography, or even the quality of the air. His first step in his self-experimentation involved a rather bold decision. He began injecting himself with the bodily fluids of yellow fever victims, including blood and vomit. This was, by all accounts, a risky undertaking, especially in a time when scientific understanding of pathogens and disease transmission was rudimentary at best. Nevertheless, Ffirth was undeterred, driven by an unshakable conviction in his hypothesis. One of his more infamous experiments involved injecting himself with blood taken directly from a yellow fever patient. He believed that by doing so, he could prove that the fever was not communicable in the way many feared. He wanted to demonstrate that, despite exposure to the virus, he would remain healthy and unharmed. At the time, the medical community had a limited understanding of viruses and bacteria, as well as how they operated within human hosts. This lack of knowledge gave Ffirth the confidence to continue his experiments. Ffirth documented his experiences meticulously, detailing any symptoms or reactions he encountered. Surprisingly, he reported minimal physical consequences, leading him to believe that he had indeed proven his point. He also conducted experiments using other bodily fluids, such as urine and sweat, and he observed similar results. His findings were compelling and raised eyebrows among the few who took notice of his work. While Ffirth's experiments did yield some interesting observations, they were not without ethical implications. There were serious concerns about the safety of such self-experiments. The medical community largely frowned upon his methods, suggesting that they were reckless and that personal bias may have clouded his conclusions. Ffirth's work represented an era of medical history that was rife with experimentation, but also with uncertainty. As time went on, more thorough investigations into yellow fever and its transmission took place. Scientists such as Walter Reed would later identify the mosquito as a vector for the yellow fever virus, cementing that the disease was not merely a result of environmental factors. Ffirth's theories, while intriguing, ultimately did not stand the test of peer review and time. What remains fascinating about Stubbins Ffirth is his tenacity and the spirit of inquiry that drove him. In many ways, he embodied the relentless pursuit of knowledge that has characterized scientific exploration for centuries. His self-experimentation is a reminder of how far medicine has come, moving from anecdotal evidence and personal testimony to a more structured approach based on rigorous scientific methods and ethical considerations. Today, discussions about self-experimentation still arise, particularly in the context of rare diseases and the lengths to which individuals might go to find answers. Ffirth's experiments raise important questions about ethics, safety, and the scientific method. They also serve as a reflection on a time when the line between heroism and recklessness was much more blurred. Stubbins Ffirth's story offers a unique glimpse into the early days of disease research and reminds us that every achievement in science often follows a path filled with courage, curiosity, and occasionally, controversy. Though Ffirth did not achieve what he initially set out to prove, his audacious experiments paved the way for future research and ignited conversations about the nature and origins of disease, conversations that continue to evolve today. The medical field today is better equipped to handle questions of contagion and infectious diseases with respect to ethical guidelines and comprehensive scientific inquiry, ensuring that stories like Ffirth's serve as historical lessons in the ongoing quest for knowledge. In the realm of natural disasters, few phenomena evoke as much fear and awe as hurricanes. These powerful storms, driven by warm ocean waters and atmospheric conditions, can unleash wind speeds exceeding 150 miles per hour and cause devastating damage to communities. Recognizing the potential for innovation in tackling these storms, scientists initiated an ambitious endeavor known as Project Stormfury during the 1960s. Project Stormfury sought to explore the possibility of weakening hurricanes through a method called cloud seeding. This technique involves dispersing substances into the atmosphere to encourage precipitation. The concept is rooted in the idea that by introducing certain materials, such as silver iodide, into the clouds, scientists could stimulate the formation of ice crystals. These crystals could then grow larger and eventually fall as precipitation, potentially altering the storm's dynamics. One of the first experiments under Project Stormfury took place in 1962, when researchers targeted Hurricane Esther. The team strategically deployed aircraft to release cloud seeding agents into the storm's outer rain bands. They hypothesized that this intervention could disrupt the hurricane's traditional behavior and lead to a reduction in intensity. While the initial results showed promise, the full impact of the operation proved difficult to measure amidst the complexities of hurricane nature. Over the following years, additional storms were targeted, including Hurricane Beulah and Hurricane Debby. These experiments were meticulously designed to gather data on how the clouds responded to the seeding. Scientists used both ground-based and aerial measurements to assess whether the interventions had any tangible effect on the hurricanes. While some experiments indicated localized increases in precipitation, proving a direct impact on the overall strength of the storms remained elusive. One significant challenge faced by the researchers was the inherent unpredictability of hurricanes. These storms are influenced by a range of factors, including wind patterns, sea surface temperatures, and environmental conditions that can change rapidly. As a result, isolating the effects of cloud seeding from the natural variances in storm intensity was no small task. This complexity underscored the difficulties in establishing a clear cause and effect relationship between their efforts and changes within the storm. Despite the challenges, Project Stormfury was notable for its ambition and the scientific inquiries it inspired. Researchers involved in the project laid the groundwork for future studies on the intersection of meteorology and climate intervention. While the primary goal of reducing hurricane strength did not yield the hoped-for results, what emerged were deeper insights into storm behavior and the atmospheric processes that govern these massive weather systems. Throughout its duration, Project Stormfury spurred conversations about human intervention in natural systems. The ethical considerations surrounding cloud seeding drew mixed responses, as experts debated whether it was prudent to manipulate something so powerful and unpredictable. Concerns about unintended consequences of such interventions emphasized the need for a cautious and informed approach. As the field of meteorology evolved, projects like Stormfury played a crucial role in shaping the discussions on climate modification and disaster preparedness. While Project Stormfury officially concluded in the mid-1980s, the spirit of innovation it embodied lives on. Modern advancements in technology have opened new avenues for investigation. Researchers today utilize sophisticated modeling and satellite imagery to study storm patterns and behaviors in more detail than ever before. The legacy of Project Stormfury continues to influence contemporary approaches to hurricane forecasting and disaster response. In the years following the culmination of Stormfury, interest in finding practical methods to mitigate hurricane impacts has only grown. Collaborative initiatives that combine the latest scientific advancements, computer simulations, and real-time data collection are now central to how scientists study hurricanes. The lessons learned from Project Stormfury have informed these modern practices, emphasizing the importance of a multidisciplinary approach. Today, as we face the ongoing challenges posed by increasingly intense storms due to climate change, the quest to understand and potentially influence these natural systems remains as relevant as ever. Issues such as rising sea temperatures and changing weather patterns have underscored the urgency in finding effective strategies for preparing for and responding to hurricanes. Researchers are continually exploring new avenues, including improving forecasting models, developing early warning systems, and enhancing emergency preparedness initiatives. This evolving field not only seeks to protect lives, but also aims to safeguard communities and infrastructure in the face of nature's might. Although the dream of weakening hurricanes through cloud seeding may not have fully materialized during the era of Stormfury, its legacy lives on in the ongoing quest to better understand these formidable storms. The exploration of innovative scientific approaches serves as a reminder of humanity's persistent and hopeful endeavor to turn the tide against fierce natural forces, learning from the past while looking toward the future. As society navigates the complexities of climate change, ingenuity, curiosity, and a commitment to research will undoubtedly play a crucial role in shaping the next chapters of our relationship with hurricanes. In the world of paleontology and genetic engineering, few ideas capture the imagination quite like that of cloning dinosaurs. Among the most well-known of these ancient creatures is the Triceratops, a robust herbivore recognized for its distinctive 3 horns and large frill. Despite its fascinating appearance and rich history, attempts to clone such majestic animals have proven to be remarkably complicated and, so far, unsuccessful. The story of the Triceratops DNA Experiment is a blend of science, hope, and the complexity of nature. The Triceratops roamed the Earth approximately 68 million years ago during the late Cretaceous period. Fossils of these creatures have been buried in sedimentary rock, waiting for paleontologists to unearth them. Scientists have been able to learn a great deal about these dinosaurs from fossils. They have traced their physical characteristics, diets, and behaviors, providing a wealth of information. Yet, what remains elusive is the ability to bring these creatures back to life, a dream sparked by the modern miracle of genetic technology. The concept of cloning dinosaurs gained mainstream attention with the famous movie Jurassic Park. In the film, scientists extract dinosaur DNA from mosquitoes preserved in amber. The thrilling narrative suggests that once the DNA is extracted, the dinosaurs can be cloned and brought back to life. Reality, however, is far less glamorous. While researchers have made significant strides in genetic science, cloning a creature like the Triceratops using ancient DNA is incredibly challenging due to the degradation of DNA over millions of years. When scientists look for dinosaur DNA, they often rely on well-preserved specimens, like those encased in amber. Unfortunately, the conditions required for DNA to remain intact are very specific, and even under optimal circumstances, ancient DNA often deteriorates. After millions of years, the likelihood of finding intact DNA that holds the full blueprint of a dinosaur is extremely low. Most of the time, what is found are only fragments, too short to provide sufficient information to recreate an entire organism. Several experiments have been attempted to connect the ancient with the modern. For example, scientists have turned to related animals like birds to facilitate the cloning process. Birds are considered the closest living relatives of dinosaurs, sharing many genetic similarities. Researchers have experimented with manipulating bird DNA to express some dinosaur-like features. However, these attempts focus on traits rather than creating an entire dinosaur. Moreover, even if intact samples were found, the process of cloning is highly intricate. The method typically involves inserting the desired DNA into a compatible host cell. This cell would ideally come from a closely related species to ensure a higher chance of success. As complex as this sounds, the intricacies of timing, environmental factors, and the health of the host cell make it a difficult endeavor. Some scientists argue that focusing solely on cloning may not be the most effective way to appreciate or understand these ancient animals. By studying the genomes of both living species and ancient remains, researchers can gain insights into the evolution and adaptations of dinosaurs. This study can help in understanding how they lived, what they ate, and how they interacted with their environment. Consequently, employing genetic techniques to learn about these organisms may yield more fruitful results than attempting to bring them back to life. In light of these challenges, several notable projects have emerged, aimed at understanding Triceratops and other dinosaurs in innovative ways. One such initiative involves the use of advanced imaging technologies to analyze fossilized bones and gather data about their structure and growth. Researchers can track the development of these creatures throughout their lives and learn more about how they may have behaved in their natural habitats. Another intriguing avenue involves studying the ecosystems of the past. By analyzing sediment cores and fossilized pollen, scientists can reconstruct the environments in which dinosaurs once lived. This approach offers a glimpse into the climatic conditions and vegetation available to the Triceratops, allowing for a deeper understanding of its lifestyle. While the dream of cloning dinosaurs like the Triceratops remains an exciting notion, the reality is a mix of science fiction and complex biology. Researchers continue to push the boundaries of genetic science, exploring the connections between ancient and modern animals. Perhaps one day, they will unlock the secrets of the past, leading to exciting discoveries and a greater appreciation for these remarkable creatures. Even in the absence of successful cloning experiments, the quest to understand dinosaurs has sparked a wealth of discoveries and innovations. From enhancing our knowledge of genetics to improving conservation efforts in modern ecosystems, the implications of this research stretch far and wide. The narrative around the Triceratops and the quest to clone such magnificent creatures serves as a reminder of the mysteries that still surround us. Each layer peeled back by scientists reveals new questions and pathways for inquiry. The adventure of exploring our planet's prehistoric past continues, inviting everyone to take a closer look and wonder what else lies beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. Operation Top Hat was a significant and controversial chapter in the history of chemical warfare research conducted by the United States. This operation focused on assessing the effectiveness of various chemical agents and developing methods to defend against them. As part of the effort, field test officers from the Chemical Corps played a crucial role in ensuring that scientific evaluations were thorough and comprehensive. One of the main objectives of Operation Top Hat was to study the effects of certain chemical substances on human subjects. The experimentation process was a challenging one, having to balance scientific inquiry with ethical considerations. This situation required that test officers not only assess the efficacy of defensive measures, but also closely monitor the physiological and psychological responses of participants under controlled conditions. Field test officers participating in this operation came from diverse backgrounds and possessed specialized training in handling hazardous materials. Their expertise was crucial for setting up the experiments, ensuring safety protocols were followed, and meticulously recording data that would contribute to the broader understanding of chemical warfare. The officers relied on precise methodologies to ensure that the results were valid and could offer insights into how humans reacted to exposure to these agents. Throughout the operation, test control measures were implemented to observe how different concentrations of chemical agents affected cognitive and physical responses. This included everything from measuring reflexes to evaluating mental clarity. Participants volunteered for these studies, many motivated by a sense of duty to contribute to national defense efforts. For example, during the testing phases, scenarios were created where participants had to perform tasks requiring focus and agility after being exposed to different agents. The responses were carefully documented, providing valuable data on how chemical agents impaired performance and decision-making. Such testing illustrated the complexities of human biology and showed how external factors could dramatically shape physical and mental capabilities. Moreover, Operation Top Hat had implications reaching far beyond its immediate findings. The data collected contributed significantly to chemical warfare defense strategies. It informed military protocols about protective equipment, informing technology development for masks and other gear that soldiers would use in potential combat situations involving chemical agents. Understanding human subjectivity was not merely an academic pursuit, but a necessary step in ensuring safety and preparedness in the face of potential warfare scenarios. In addition to the technical aspects of Operation Top Hat, the psychological impact on participants was also an important area of observation. Researchers and test officers noted that volunteers experienced varying levels of anxiety or stress during their exposure to chemical agents. This highlighted the human element of such scientific endeavors, emphasizing that the ramifications of chemical warfare were not solely physical. Mental resilience and psychological coping strategies became integral parts of evaluating effectiveness and readiness. As the operation progressed, it became clear that the implications of the findings would resonate within military strategies for decades. The insights gained helped develop training protocols that focus not only on physical readiness but also on mental fortitude, preparing armed forces for the broad range of challenges they might face in the field. Field test officers were also tasked with post-experiment evaluations, analyzing the data collected, and formulating recommendations for future operations. This involved collaborative efforts among various military branches, scientists, and policymakers to translate findings into actionable strategies that would enhance national security. The feedback loop established between testing operations and military application created a robust framework for ongoing research and development, fostering innovation in defensive technologies. However, it is essential to recognize that the ethical implications of human subject research in this context were continually scrutinized. The medical and scientific communities debated the morality of using human subjects in studies designed to expose them to harmful agents, raising questions about informed consent, psychological pressures on participants, and the broader implications of normalizing such practices in military research. Operation Top Hat thus stands as a remarkable instance of both the advancement of scientific inquiry and the moral quandaries it invokes. Lessons learned from this operation reshaped the policies governing human subject research, spurring a more comprehensive dialogue about ethics and scientific exploration while pursuing defense against future threats. In the end, the legacy of Operation Top Hat endures in multiple layers: technological advancements, military strategy, and ethical considerations. The work done by field test officers underscores not only the complexities of chemical warfare research, but also the profound impact of balancing scientific exploration with the fundamental respect for human dignity and rights. The narratives born from these test cases continue to inform best practices today, establishing a pathway towards responsible research that honors those who contributed to the understanding of human resilience amidst adversity. This operation exemplifies how, even in the most challenging circumstances, knowledge can evolve, leading to a safer and more prepared world. Project Artichoke was a highly classified program initiated by the Central Intelligence Agency during the turbulent years of the Cold War. Its primary aim was to explore the use of various methods, including interrogation techniques, hypnosis, and the administration of drugs, to determine the most effective ways to extract information from individuals. This project, which began in the early 1950s, represents a fascinating chapter in the history of intelligence operations and psychological research. The origins of Project Artichoke can be traced back to the CIA's growing concern about the effectiveness of traditional interrogation methods. Agency operatives needed innovative ways to obtain information, especially in the context of international espionage, where time was often of the essence. To this end, Artichoke sought to delve into the psychological and physiological aspects of human behavior, aiming to understand how perceptions, memories, and even subconscious thoughts could be altered or influenced. One of the key areas of investigation within Project Artichoke was the use of hypnosis. Hypnosis, often viewed with skepticism by the mainstream medical community, fascinated CIA researchers because of its potential to unlock hidden memories or induce a state in which the subject might be more susceptible to persuasion. Operatives experimented with various techniques, attempting to determine whether a subject could be put into a trance-like state and then guided to reveal information or memories that had been suppressed. In tandem with hypnosis, the project also explored the administration of drugs as a means of enhancing interrogation. The CIA was particularly interested in substances that could act as truth serums, or even those that could induce extreme states of agitation or confusion. The use of drugs like LSD and other hallucinogens became a focal point of this research. The belief was that altering a person's mental state could lead to information being disclosed more readily. However, the unpredictability and side effects associated with such drugs raised serious ethical concerns and questions about their efficacy. Another crucial aspect of Project Artichoke was the exploration of coercion and psychological manipulation techniques. Agency psychologists studied various strategies that could be employed to pressure individuals into divulging information. Such methods included tactics like isolation, sensory deprivation, and the use of fear, all of which have been shown to potentially lead to information extraction, but at the cost of moral and ethical implications that would later surface in broader interrogative practices. The investigative efforts within Project Artichoke were not just limited to theories and laboratory settings. The program involved real-world applications, where the techniques developed were tested on subjects, sometimes leading to controversial outcomes. Operatives gathered data and feedback through these real-life applications, albeit in settings often shrouded in secrecy and ethical ambiguity. As a result, the findings of the project blended elements of success, failure, and moral quandaries, leading to a complex legacy of what constitutes acceptable practices in intelligence gathering. Project Artichoke also interacted with other programs under the CIA's umbrella, notably MKUltra, which delved even deeper into mind control and the effects of various substances on human behavior. The interplay between these projects illustrated a broader trend within the agency's mindset at the time, where the urgency of the geopolitical environment led to increasingly bold and sometimes reckless ethical decisions in the name of national security. As the 1960s approached, there was a growing recognition of the ethical implications surrounding the activities undertaken in the name of Artichoke. High-profile revelations about government conduct during this era sparked public outrage and led to increased scrutiny of intelligence agencies and their methods. Investigations and inquiries into programs like Artichoke ultimately began to reveal the darker side of psychological experimentation and the implications of manipulating individuals without their consent. The program was officially discontinued, but the lessons learned and the various tactics developed continued to influence the field of interrogation. In later years, there was a shift towards more humane and ethical approaches to gathering information, acknowledging the need to balance effectiveness with respect for individual rights. Despite its controversial nature, Project Artichoke provides a compelling glimpse into the intersection of psychology, power, and human behavior. It raises fundamental questions about the lengths to which governments will go to protect national interests and the moral responsibilities that accompany such missions. The legacy of this project serves as a reminder of the importance of ethical considerations in the implementation of psychological research and interrogation techniques, even in the face of existential threats. In essence, Project Artichoke is not merely a relic of Cold War history, but a story that reflects ongoing struggles within the realms of ethics, psychology, and intelligence practices. It invites us to consider how far we might go in the name of security and the complex layers of human behavior that remain both fascinating and profoundly significant in our understanding of trust, perception, and the intricate tapestry of communication. The Bluebird Project, often shrouded in secrecy and speculation, was an early program initiated by the CIA during the height of the Cold War. Launched in 1950, this program aimed to explore methods of behavioral control, hypnosis, and the potential for mind control. Declassified documents reveal a multifaceted approach to understanding how the human mind operates, particularly under stress or duress. The Cold War period marked a time of intense paranoia and competition between the United States and the Soviet Union. Intelligence agencies were in a race to develop techniques that could give them an upper hand, whether in espionage or interrogation. The Bluebird Project was born from a belief that by understanding the mechanics of human behavior, one could manipulate it to serve national interests. One of the primary focuses of the Bluebird Project was hypnosis. Researchers sought to uncover how certain individuals could be placed in a trance-like state, and whether this could lead to enhanced memory or even reprogramming of thoughts and behavior. The idea was that a skilled hypnotist could extract sensitive information from a subject without the need for coercion or violence. Reports indicated that subjects could be influenced to forget traumatic events or even to perform actions without their conscious awareness. Another critical area of interest was the use of drugs in combination with hypnosis. The CIA explored various substances that might facilitate control over an individual's mind. This included everything from psychotropic drugs like LSD to more conventional sedatives. The goal was to find a, quote, truth serum that could force subjects to reveal classified information. This line of inquiry led to extensive research into the effects of drugs on the psyche and behavior. In exploring these themes, the Bluebird Project also delved into the concept of trauma and coercion. Researchers sought to determine how extreme stress could affect an individual's thought processes, and whether it could be harnessed for intelligence purposes. By understanding how fear and anxiety can alter perceptions, the CIA hoped to identify methods that could elicit confessions or compliance in interrogative scenarios. The project was not known for its ethical boundaries. There were instances where individuals were subjected to experiments without their consent. Stories have emerged of subjects being exposed to various psychological techniques, sometimes in an attempt to break down their will or alter their thought processes. This raises profound ethical questions about the responsibility of those conducting such experiments and the moral implications of manipulating human behavior. Part of the program's legacy also includes its influence on popular culture. The concepts behind the Bluebird Project appeared in numerous films and books, often dramatizing themes of mind control and espionage. Works of fiction commonly draw on the narrative of a government capable of manipulating individuals' thoughts and actions, feeding public fascination with the unknown and the power of the mind. Despite its ambitious aims, the Bluebird Project eventually evolved into what is more commonly known as MKUltra. This later program expanded on the foundations laid by Bluebird and explored even more controversial techniques. While much of MKUltra's legacy is similarly cloaked in secrecy and speculation, it illustrates a continued interest in the power dynamics of human psychology. As time went on and ethical standards for human experimentation began to evolve, projects like Bluebird faced increasing scrutiny. The concept of informed consent became vital, as did the recognition of individual rights in research. This shift marked a move away from secretive government programs toward a more open dialogue about the ethics involved in psychological experimentation. In retrospect, the Bluebird Project stands as a fascinating chapter in the history of intelligence gathering and psychological research. It serves as a reminder of the lengths to which organizations might go in the quest for power and information. The implications of manipulating behavior through hypnosis and other techniques continue to resonate, leaving us to ponder the delicate balance between science, ethics, and human rights. As we consider these explorations, it is important to remember the human element behind the research. Each study conducted under the auspices of the Bluebird Project involved real individuals whose lives were profoundly affected by the unpredictable and often unsettling experiments designed to probe the boundaries of the human mind. Their experiences and the ethical concerns surrounding them continue to be relevant in discussions about psychology, research methods, and the role of government in our lives. So as we explore the historical context and outcomes of the Bluebird Project, we gain not just knowledge about past endeavors, but also critical insights into the ongoing conversation about how we ethically navigate the complex landscape of human behavior and psychological exploration. Each turn of the page in this story encourages a deeper understanding of the mind's power, the potential for manipulation, and the enduring quest for knowledge that shapes both individual lives and our collective history. In the early stages of the Cold War, the United States government embarked on a series of experiments that would later lead to controversy and concern among the public. One such operation was known as Operation LAC, or Large Area Coverage. This operation aimed to test the dispersion of chemical agents under various environmental conditions to assess the effectiveness of different methods for dispersing biological and chemical agents, if ever needed, in a military context. The operation took place between the 1950s and 1960s, when the fear of nuclear conflict and bioweapons proliferation was escalating. As part of their research, the U.S. Army chose to conduct tests involving the release of zinc-cadmium sulfide, a fluorescent compound that had bright and reflective properties. The decision to use this compound stemmed from its visibility and the ease with which it could be tracked in the environment. In a curious experiment, small clouds of this substance were sprayed over several cities, including places like San Francisco and New York. The rationale for this was multifaceted. First, researchers sought to determine how far and wide a substance could spread in urban areas. They wanted to understand the potential impact on civilian populations should an actual chemical agent ever be released. By analyzing how the zinc-cadmium sulfide traveled through the air, they could make educated projections about future deployments of agents under similar circumstances. However, the choice of zinc-cadmium sulfide raised ethical questions. The compound is not considered highly toxic, yet it has been associated with respiratory problems when inhaled in large quantities. This led to a growing concern among citizens regarding the safety of these tests. Unbeknownst to the public at the time, the experiments were taking place above their heads as they went about their daily lives. During the operation, researchers utilized various delivery systems, including aerosol sprays, to scatter the chemical over designated areas. The data gathered from the tests included vital information on wind patterns, weather conditions, and how different environments could affect the spread of the agent. For instance, urban landscapes can lead to unique airflow dynamics due to tall buildings, which can influence how any substance, be it a harmless agent or something more dangerous, spreads through the air. One particularly interesting aspect of the operation involved how the researchers studied the chemical's interaction with buildings and other physical structures. The shadows created by skyscrapers, the heat from vehicles, and even the movement of people played a role in how the zinc-cadmium sulfide settled in various locations. Insights gathered from these experiments would inform military strategy and tactics, allowing experts to understand better how to mitigate risks in populated areas. In addition to urban settings, tests were also conducted in more open environments. For instance, some trials occurred in rural areas, where the less dense population allowed for broader coverage without immediate risk to civilians. This provided further data on how the agent would disperse across different landscapes, such as farmland and forests. As the years went by, the project drew criticism. Activists and members of the scientific community raised alarms about the ethical implications of conducting such tests without the knowledge or consent of the affected populations. The veil of secrecy surrounding Operation LAC fueled suspicions and fears about government transparency and accountability. Many began to question just how far the government was willing to go in the name of national security. In the aftermath of the operation, various studies conducted to assess potential health effects on the population led to mixed findings, and some argued that a broader understanding of the long-term consequences was necessary. This led to a greater demand for strict regulations and oversight when it came to experiments involving chemicals and biological agents. The operations highlighted the importance of ethical considerations in government research and the need for public involvement in discussions regarding safety and health. As we look back at Operation LAC, it serves as a reminder of how the interplay between science, ethics, and public safety is crucial. It also showcases the delicate balance that must be maintained when carrying out experiments that can have widespread effects on society. More than half a century later, the legacy of Operation LAC continues to influence how government agencies conduct research and informs discussions around transparency, accountability, and the public's right to know what is happening in their communities. The lessons learned from such operations are invaluable and contribute to a more informed approach in addressing future research endeavors. The field of psychology and neuroscience has always been a fascinating area, especially when delving into the realms of human thought manipulation and mind control. One particular period that stands out in history is the era known informally as the Mind Control Lab. This period saw early experiments that stirred both intrigue and controversy surrounding the potential to influence human thought and behavior. The origins of mind control experiments can be traced back to the post-World War II era, a time of significant innovation in various scientific disciplines. Researchers were curious about the effects of psychological conditioning and how it could be applied to influence individuals' actions and thoughts. One central figure during this period was Dr. José Delgado, a Spanish neurophysiologist whose work would lay foundational concepts in the study of brain stimulation. Delgado's most famous experiment involved the use of electrodes implanted in the brains of animals, particularly monkeys. He demonstrated that by stimulating certain areas of their brains, he could control their movements. For instance, Delgado famously trained a bull to stop charging by using a radio transmitter that delivered electrical impulses to its brain. This shocking demonstration of control raised profound questions about free will and autonomy. Could thoughts and behaviors be manipulated in humans in a similar way? As researchers delved deeper, they examined the intersection of psychology and pharmacology. In an effort to explore ways to manipulate thought, some scientists turned to drugs. The CIA's MKUltra program is perhaps the most infamous example related to human mind control studies. This secret project aimed to investigate various methods of mind control, including the use of hallucinogenic substances like LSD. The purpose was to uncover how these chemicals could potentially alter perceptions, thoughts, and memories. The methods employed during this time were often unorthodox and raised ethical concerns that continue to resonate today. Many subjects were unwitting participants in the trials, receiving drugs without their knowledge or consent. The revelations about MKUltra not only exhibited the lengths to which organizations would go in the pursuit of control, but also highlighted the moral implications of manipulating human behavior without consent. Another area of study focused on the concept of subliminal messaging. This technique involved sending messages below the threshold of conscious perception, aiming to influence thoughts and actions without individuals being aware of it. Early experiments showed that subjects exposed to subliminal stimuli exhibited changes in behavior, igniting debates on the extent to which thoughts could be guided by external, invisible forces. The discussions surrounding these early experiments often revolve around the ethical implications of manipulating thoughts. Consider the implications if individuals could be coerced into decisions unbeknownst to them, effectively stripping away their agency. Such scenarios ignited widespread public concern and interest, leading to greater scrutiny of psychological research practices. As the 1960s and 1970s rolled in, the landscape of thought manipulation studies began to change. Psychologists like B.F. Skinner gained popularity for their work on behaviorism and operant conditioning. They emphasized that behavior could be modified through reinforcement and conditioning, rather than through direct manipulation of thought processes. Skinner's experiments with pigeons, where behaviors were encouraged through a reward system, reflected a different approach to understanding human actions without the moral quandaries associated with earlier methods. The implications of these early experiments continue to reverberate through contemporary psychology and neuroscience. Today, technology has advanced significantly, allowing for new techniques such as neurofeedback and brain-computer interfaces. These innovations provide opportunities to measure and influence thought processes in a controlled environment. However, the ethical foundations laid out during the controversial experiments of the past remain ever pertinent as we tread further into possibilities of human thought manipulation. Despite the controversial aspects of these early studies, the questions raised are crucial for current and future research. How much influence do we have over our thoughts? How much can outside forces manipulate us? These queries continue to be pivotal in understanding human psychology and behavior. As insights into the brain increase, so does the responsibility of ethical guidelines to protect individuals from potential coercion, reflecting a balance between knowledge and morality. In examining these early experimental endeavors, we find a tapestry of inquiry woven with both ambition and caution. The controversies surrounding them serve as a reminder that the pursuit of knowledge should always come with the awareness of moral responsibility, ensuring that as we unlock the secrets of the mind, we do so with integrity. As society continues to navigate the complex interplay of thought and behavior, the legacy of the Mind Control Lab remains an essential chapter in the unfolding story of human understanding. In the realm of intelligence and military operations, the quest for effective interrogation techniques has often led researchers down intriguing paths. One of these paths brings us to Project Chatter, a lesser-known effort conducted by the United States during the Cold War. This project delved into the science of drugs, particularly focusing on substances like scopolamine, as potential tools for extracting information from unwilling subjects. The use of drugs in interrogation is steeped in a complex mixture of ethics, effectiveness, and the unpredictability of human behavior. Scopolamine, derived from the leaves of the belladonna plant, has a rich history of use in medicine. It's known for its sedative properties and its ability to induce a state of suggestibility, which made it an attractive candidate for use in interrogation scenarios. Project Chatter emerged in the late 1940s, at a time when the United States was deeply engaged in the espionage battlefield, particularly against the Soviet Union. There was significant anxiety about the techniques employed by adversaries in intelligence gathering, prompting the desire to explore any potential advantage. Researchers were curious about whether certain drugs could lower inhibitions and make individuals more compliant, allowing interrogators to glean vital information more easily. Experiments with scopolamine began to reveal interesting results. Subjects would often become disoriented and experience memory disruptions when under the drug's influence. This disorientation could lead to an altered state of consciousness, where the lines between reality and suggestion blurred. Investigators hoped that by using this drug, they could subtly guide conversations, leading subjects to reveal information they might otherwise keep secret. However, the effectiveness of scopolamine was not without its complications. While some subjects might show signs of increased compliance, others would become agitated or uncooperative. The outcomes of these experiments were inconsistent, raising questions about the reliability of drug-induced information retrieval. Moreover, ethical considerations loomed large, as concerns about consent and manipulation began to surface within the scientific community. Beyond scopolamine, Project Chatter explored other substances and methods. Barbiturates, known for their calming effects, were also tested. The idea was that these drugs could serve to relax subjects, making them more open to discussion. Yet, like scopolamine, these substances carried risks of ineffectiveness and potential harm to the subjects involved, leading to a broader debate about the morality of using such approaches in intelligence work. The narrative of Project Chatter speaks not only to the scientific inquiry into drug-facilitated interrogation, but also to the cultural and ethical implications intertwined with these practices. As news of the project and its methods began to seep into the public consciousness, it sparked discussions about human rights, consent, and the moral responsibilities of those in power. While the pursuit of effective interrogation techniques has continued in various forms, Project Chatter serves as a historical reference point highlighting both the fascination and the perils of employing pharmacological methods in interrogation. The implications of such practices invite us to consider the balance between national security interests and the rights and dignity of individuals. The history of Project Chatter is a reminder of the lengths to which humans will go in the name of knowledge and control, revealing the complex interplay between advancements in science and the ethical dilemmas that accompany them. As we examine these historical efforts, it becomes increasingly clear that the desire for information must be tempered with a commitment to human dignity, respect, and ethical integrity. Today, the legacy of Project Chatter continues to prompt debate, as the ramifications of manipulating consciousness for intelligence-gathering purposes evoke questions that resonate across decades. As we advance in our understanding of neuroscience and psychology, the lessons learned from these experiments remind us of the importance of conducting research ethically, ensuring that the pursuit of progress does not come at the expense of the very principles we hold dear. In the end, the exploration of substances like scopolamine in Project Chatter encapsulates a moment in history where science, human behavior, and ethical considerations converged, ultimately shaping how we understand the complexities of interrogation and the critical importance of human rights in any form of investigation. The challenges faced by past researchers provide valuable insights that continue to inform practices and policies in intelligence agencies today, highlighting the necessity of reflection on our methods and motivations, ensuring they align with our values. This historical project serves as a vivid reminder of the intricate dance between knowledge and ethics, an exploration into the depths of human psyche, and the critical importance of asking difficult questions about the means we choose to employ in the relentless pursuit of information. Milieu Therapy is a distinctive approach to psychiatric treatment that focuses on creating a supportive environment for individuals experiencing mental health challenges. The premise of milieu therapy is that the surroundings and social interactions within a therapeutic setting can profoundly influence a person's mental well-being. This method recognizes that healing does not occur in isolation, but rather in the context of interpersonal relationships and environmental factors. Imagine stepping into a beautifully designed space filled with soft lighting, comfortable seating, and calming colors. The atmosphere is tranquil, yet it buzzes with positive interaction. This is the essence of milieu therapy, where the environment is purposefully crafted to foster safety and engagement. Each element within this space serves a specific purpose, encouraging individuals to connect with themselves and others in meaningful ways. In a milieu therapy setting, the focus is on the interactions between patients, staff, and the environment. Staff members are trained to engage with patients in ways that promote communication, self-expression, and interpersonal skills. This creates an atmosphere where individuals feel heard and valued. Examples of activities might include group discussions, art therapy, and role-playing exercises, all aimed at enhancing social skills and emotional expression. One key aspect of milieu therapy is the idea of a therapeutic community. This concept encompasses a structured environment where everyone plays a role in supporting one another's growth. It's like being part of a team, where each member contributes to the well-being of the group. Members of this community share their experiences and coping strategies, learning from one another. They discover that they are not alone in their struggles, fostering a sense of belonging and partnership. The environment in a milieu therapy program is intentionally designed to minimize stressors. For instance, noise levels are carefully managed to prevent overstimulation, and spaces are organized to promote calm interactions. The focus is on creating a sanctuary where individuals can focus on healing and personal growth. This might involve outdoor spaces where patients can connect with nature, which has been shown to have a calming effect on the mind. Structured daily routines are another essential component of milieu therapy. These routines provide individuals with a sense of stability and predictability. Within these routines, patients participate in various therapeutic activities, such as goal-setting sessions, where they can reflect on their aspirations and challenges. This structured approach not only helps individuals develop essential coping skills, but also instills a sense of accomplishment and progress. Communication is crucial in milieu therapy, and staff members are trained to listen actively and respond empathetically. This level of engagement encourages individuals to express their thoughts and emotions openly. Think of it as having a supportive friend who genuinely cares about your feelings and experiences. This open communication helps patients feel understood and validated, reducing feelings of isolation. Moreover, milieu therapy often incorporates family involvement, recognizing that relationships with loved ones can significantly impact mental health. Family members may be invited to participate in sessions, where they can learn how to provide support and foster understanding. This collaborative approach strengthens the network of care, ultimately improving outcomes for individuals. Research has shown that milieu therapy can have a profound impact on improving mental health outcomes. Studies indicate that patients who engage in milieu therapy often experience enhanced social skills, increased self-awareness, and lower levels of anxiety. The therapeutic environment helps individuals process their experiences and develop healthier coping mechanisms. In essence, milieu therapy reshapes the way we think about mental health care. Instead of viewing treatment as a series of clinical interactions, it emphasizes the importance of community and environment. It invites individuals to explore their identities and relationships in a safe and nurturing space. By focusing on the social dynamics within a therapeutic setting, milieu therapy provides a holistic approach to mental health care that addresses the intricate interplay between individuals and their environment. As you reflect on the principles of milieu therapy, consider how much our surroundings and social interactions shape our well-being. In a world that often emphasizes isolation, this approach highlights the power of connection and community. Whether it's through a gentle conversation, a shared experience, or simply being in a supportive environment, we can all recognize the importance of fostering space and relationships that nurture our mental health. In this journey of supporting mental well-being, we come to understand that healing is not just an individual endeavor, but a shared process that thrives on compassion, understanding, and community support. By prioritizing the environment and interpersonal relationships, milieu therapy opens the door to transformative experiences that can lead to lasting positive change in individuals' lives. Each day presents an opportunity for growth, exploration, and connection, emphasizing that we are all in this journey together. In embracing this therapeutic approach, we take significant strides towards a brighter, more compassionate future for mental health care. In the annals of World War II, one of the most fascinating yet lesser-known projects was Project X-ray, which focused on the use of bats as a means to unleash incendiary devices on enemy targets. While at first glance the concept of using bats in warfare might seem peculiar, it reflects a unique intersection of biology, technology, and creativity in the face of conflict. The inception of Project X-ray dates back to 1942, during a time when traditional bombing strategies were being critically evaluated for their effectiveness. The United States military was on the lookout for innovative solutions to disrupt and damage the infrastructure of the Axis powers. Researchers and military officials were exploring various unconventional ideas when the notion of utilizing bats emerged quite unexpectedly. Bats possess a remarkable capacity for echolocation, which allows them to navigate through the dark and locate their prey. With over 1,200 species of bats worldwide, they are adaptable creatures, capable of living in a variety of environments. The goal was to exploit these natural abilities to the advantage of the military. The concept involved attaching small incendiary devices to the bats and releasing them over enemy territory. The initial approach was innovative and ambitious. The idea was to train the bats to roost in strategic locations. Once they settled down in the buildings, they would naturally seek out the highest points, like attics or rafters. Here, the incendiary devices, which were designed to burst into flames, would ignite and create chaos and destruction in a targeted area. The hope was that the fires would not only damage infrastructure, but would also cause fear and confusion among enemy troops. The project was spearheaded by a team of researchers, including a dentist named Lytle S. Adams, who proposed this outlandish idea to the military. With his background in biology and an understanding of animal behavior, Adams believed it could work. The military was intrigued by the potential of using bats and allocated funding to develop the concept further. This led to experiments and tests that would ultimately attempt to demonstrate the feasibility of the bat bomb. In testing, bats were captured and trained to associate their food with specific locations. Researchers created a specialized device, a kind of small bomb that would be attached to the bats. Each device contained a chemical incendiary that would ideally ignite a fire upon release. The tests began in various locations, including military bases and remote areas, to monitor how the bats reacted and how effective the incendiary devices would be. As research progressed, it became clear that there were numerous challenges to overcome. The bats had their own behavior patterns, which sometimes conflicted with the goals of the project. For example, the bats would not always return as hoped to their intended release areas after being set free. Some of them would fly off in unpredictable directions, creating a significant risk that they could ignite fires in unintended places, including friendly territory. Despite these setbacks, the project continued to receive interest. The military even constructed a special facility called Bat Bomb Factory, which was located in New Mexico. This facility was dedicated to the training of bats and the development of incendiary devices. It showcased a unique collaboration between military personnel and wildlife specialists, reflecting a blend of science and tactical strategy. In moments of hope, initial trials showed some promise. The project seemed to be a potential game changer. However, the progress slowed when the war began to shift towards different strategies and technologies. As aerial bombing techniques advanced with more precise and effective solutions, interest in Project X-ray waned. Eventually, the project was abandoned, but not without leaving an enduring legacy in the annals of military history. The story of Project X-ray is a testament to human ingenuity and the lengths to which people will go to solve problems, especially in times of conflict. It illustrates how creativity can lead to extraordinary ideas, even if they are unconventional. The attempt to use bats as a strategic method of warfare showcases the intersection of wildlife and military technology, marking a unique chapter in the historical record of World War II. Although Project X-ray never reached the operational stage envisioned by its creators, it remains a captivating reminder of innovation during wartime. It invites us to ponder the many ways in which nature and human conflict can intertwine. In this particular case, a simple creature like the bat was seen not only as a mammal, but as a tool, emblematic of a creative and, at times, desperate search for solutions in one of humanity's darkest periods. What does this story tell us about the nature of warfare and strategy and how far people are willing to go in pursuit of victory. The legacy of Project X-ray challenges us to think about innovation beyond traditional methods and encourages curiosity about how future conflicts could be approached with a fresh perspective. While the ultimate outcome of the project was not realized as planned, the tale of Project X-ray endures, prompting both admiration and contemplation in equal measure. In the 1940s and 1950s, an unusual and controversial experiment took place at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT. The experiment involved a rather iconic breakfast food, Quaker Oats, but what made this study stand out is that it involved feeding children cereal laced with radioactive iron and calcium. This story sheds light on how science has evolved and how ethical standards in research have grown over the decades. To understand the context of this experiment, let's first explore why researchers were interested in radioactive isotopes, particularly iron and calcium. Iron is essential for many bodily functions, including the formation of hemoglobin, the protein in red blood cells that carries oxygen throughout the body. Calcium is another critical mineral, vital for strong bones and teeth, and playing an essential role in nerve signaling and muscle function. The incorporation of radioactive forms of these minerals offered scientists a unique way to trace how they were absorbed and utilized in the body, providing insights into metabolism that would be difficult to obtain through other means. During this time, post-World War II America was experiencing a scientific boom. Researchers were enthusiastic about the potential of nuclear technology, and misconceptions about radiation lingered. The experiments at MIT were conducted under the auspices of the U.S. government, which was interested in understanding the effects of radiation on the human body, particularly children, since their developing systems might respond differently than those of adults. The research team decided to utilize Quaker Oats, a convenient and popular breakfast option, as the medium for the radioactive substances. They thought that by blending radioactive iron and calcium into the oats, they could efficiently study how these isotopes were absorbed through a child's digestive system. It was an audacious and experimental approach, one that could yield data to support nutritional science, but it also involved ethical quandaries that weren't fully appreciated at the time. In the studies, children were asked to consume the specially prepared Quaker Oats, and researchers carefully monitored them. They used radiation detectors to track how much of the radioactive iron and calcium was absorbed into the body. The goal was to gather data on how these nutrients were processed and used, contributing to broader nutritional guidelines and helping to improve food fortification practices, especially for children. Despite the knowledge these experiments aimed to provide, the ethical implications were substantial. In hindsight, many question the appropriateness of involving children in such studies, especially with substances considered to be unsafe today. In the contemporary context, informed consent and ethical review boards have become standard in protecting participants, particularly vulnerable populations like children, from potentially harmful research practices. As the years passed, a deeper understanding of radiation and its effects on human health emerged. The excitement surrounding the potential benefits of nuclear research had to be balanced with caution. The consequences of exposing individuals to radioactive materials began to be more clearly understood. Today, the notion of intentionally feeding children radioactive substances to study nutrient absorption would be met with widespread disapproval and legal ramifications. The legacy of these experiments, however, did contribute to advancements in nutritional science and our understanding of mineral absorption. They spurred further research on how the body processes essential nutrients and influenced dietary recommendations. Researchers learned about the significance of balancing the needed minerals in our diets, while understanding the impact of contaminants and additives, even those that are naturally occurring. In the current era, the science of nutrition has embraced modern techniques, such as molecular biology and bioinformatics, providing more accurate methods to study nutrient interactions without the associated risks of earlier practices. These advancements allow for safer, less invasive research approaches, further propelling our understanding of how the body utilizes food. As we reflect on the history of scientific methods, it demonstrates how much our values and ethical considerations in research have evolved. The story of radioactive Quaker Oats serves as a reminder of the balance between innovation and responsibility, and how the quest for knowledge must always be harmonized with our duty to protect and prioritize the well-being of all individuals, especially those who are most vulnerable. In conclusion, the quirky chapter of Quaker Oats and radioactive studies at MIT emphasizes the importance of scientific curiosity while also illustrating the critical need for ethical research practices. Our understanding of nutrition has grown tremendously since those early experiments, and the legacy left behind teaches us both the potential benefits and the importance of safeguarding future generations through responsible research initiatives. Thank you for traveling with us through this fascinating piece of history, highlighting the balance of scientific exploration and the duty of care we owe to our communities. The Oak Ridge Fallout Studies are a series of significant environmental research projects focused on understanding the effects of radiation from nuclear tests conducted in Tennessee. The studies emerged in the context of the Cold War era, a time when nuclear weapon testing was a common practice. These tests were not only a demonstration of military prowess, but also a source of considerable concern regarding their impact on public health and the environment. Initiated by the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, the studies were designed to assess the long-term effects of radioactive fallout from nuclear tests. Oak Ridge was uniquely positioned for such research, as it had been a hub of nuclear research since World War II. The laboratory had the expertise, resources, and historical context necessary to explore the consequences of radiation exposure on both human health and the ecosystem. One of the primary focuses of the Oak Ridge Fallout Studies was the analysis of radioactive isotopes in the environment. When a nuclear device is detonated, it releases a mix of different isotopes, including strontium-90, Cesium-137, and iodine-131. These isotopes can travel long distances through the air and can contaminate soil and water sources. Understanding how these substances spread and where they settle is crucial for evaluating their impact on local populations. The studies involved extensive sampling of soil, water, and air in and around the test sites. Researchers collected and analyzed data over many years, creating a comprehensive database of radiation levels. This data was critical in establishing baseline radiation exposure levels in comparison to natural background radiation, which is always present in varying degrees. For instance, while natural background radiation is typically measured in microsieverts, fallout from nuclear tests introduced additional levels that health officials sought to quantify and understand. In addition to environmental monitoring, the Oak Ridge Fallout Studies also examined the biological effects of radiation exposure. This included research on animal and plant life, as well as studies on human populations that lived near the testing areas. Such research often focused on long-term health outcomes, including the incidence of cancers and other radiation-induced illnesses. For example, some studies explored whether there was a significant increase in thyroid cancer linked to exposure from iodine-131 fallout, which is known to accumulate in the thyroid gland. The implications of the Oak Ridge Fallout Studies extended beyond Tennessee, shaping national policies and guidelines on nuclear safety and public health. Findings from these studies contributed to a better understanding of radiation exposure, leading to the development of more effective protective measures during nuclear emergencies and guidelines for monitoring radiation in affected communities. Additionally, insights gained from the data helped influence legislation regarding nuclear testing and environmental safety standards. The studies also enhanced public awareness and education about radiation risks. They highlighted the importance of transparency and communication between government agencies and local communities, ensuring that people were informed about any potential risks associated with nuclear activities. This aspect of the research was particularly important during the 1970s and 1980s, as public concern about nuclear safety began to rise. An important dimension of the Oak Ridge Fallout Studies was the collaboration between scientists, policymakers, and local communities. Researchers actively engaged with residents living near testing zones to gather data and share findings, fostering a sense of trust and cooperation. Community involvement has been crucial in not only disseminating information, but also in shaping future research agendas to address local concerns and protect public health. Today, the legacy of the Oak Ridge Fallout Studies continues to influence how we respond to environmental radiation issues. As nuclear technologies evolve and new challenges arise, the foundational knowledge gained from these studies plays a vital role in navigating the complex interactions between nuclear activities and public health. The commitment to ongoing research serves as a reminder of the importance of vigilance in monitoring environmental health. In conclusion, the Oak Ridge Fallout Studies represent a pivotal moment in environmental health research. Through extensive investigation of radioactive fallout from nuclear tests, researchers provided crucial insights into the effects of radiation exposure on both the environment and public health. The ongoing implications of this work extend far beyond the immediate geographic area of Tennessee, shaping policies and practices to protect communities from radiation hazards and guide future research in similar domains. In the annals of history, military research has often wandered into uncharted territories, seeking to bolster the defenses of nations against unseen foes. One of the lesser-known chapters in this narrative involves the Whitecoat Experiments conducted by the U.S. Army, specifically during the 20th century. This research involved the testing of various infectious agents on volunteer soldiers, collectively known as the Whitecoat Volunteers. Their story offers a fascinating glimpse into the intersection of science, ethics, and national security. The backdrop of this initiative was the Cold War, a period marked by significant advancements in military technology and biological weapons research. The U.S. Army recognized that understanding infectious diseases and their impact on human health was crucial. Infectious agents like viruses, bacteria, and toxins could potentially be weaponized, and it was paramount to develop effective countermeasures. The Whitecoat program aimed to study these agents under strict scientific controls while minimizing risks to military personnel. The term whitecoat refers to the white laboratory coats traditionally worn by scientists and researchers. This name was a nod to the dual nature of the project, which straddled both medical research and military objectives. Volunteers for the program were primarily members of the armed forces who offered their consent to participate in this unique research. They understood the risks involved but were also motivated by a sense of duty and the potential benefits the research could yield in terms of national security. The experiments themselves were conducted at the Army's Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases, located at Fort Detrick, Maryland. Here, researchers sought to investigate a plethora of pathogens, including viruses like the influenza virus, and bacteria such as anthrax and tularemia. The volunteers underwent rigorous screening processes to ensure that their participation would not pose unnecessary health risks. One of the key objectives of these experiments was to evaluate the effectiveness of vaccines and treatments against some of the deadliest infectious agents known to mankind. By studying the immune response of soldiers, scientists aimed to develop better vaccines that could protect not just military personnel, but also civilians in case of an outbreak or bioterrorist attack. Think of it like a safety check for a vehicle. Just as engineers test different components under various conditions to create a reliable car, researchers analyze how the human body responds to specific infectious agents, allowing for the development of preventive measures and treatment protocols. This research plays a pivotal role in ensuring that doctors and healthcare providers have the necessary tools to combat infectious diseases effectively. As with any research involving human subjects, ethical considerations were paramount. The Whitecoat volunteers were highly educated individuals who understood the risks associated with the experiments they were undertaking. They provided informed consent before participating, which means they were fully aware of what the studies entailed. This aspect is crucial in research ethics, the respect for autonomy and the obligation to ensure that individuals are not subjected to harm without their understanding and acceptance. Nevertheless, the experiments have sparked debate regarding the ethical implications of testing infectious agents on human subjects, especially within a military context. Critics argue that the power dynamics within military structures may undermine true voluntary consent, creating ethical dilemmas that warrant scrutiny. On the other hand, proponents assert that the volunteers were fully informed and that their contributions significantly advanced medical science and public health safety. As the years progressed, the findings from the Whitecoat experiments yielded valuable insights that contributed to vaccine development and treatments for various infectious diseases. For instance, the research led to a better understanding of how to induce immunity, particularly in contexts where rapid responses to outbreaks were critical. This legacy remains particularly relevant in contemporary discussions surrounding global health challenges, where the threat of emerging infectious diseases is ever present. In retrospect, the Whitecoat experiments stand as an example of how military research can contribute to broader societal well-being. The lessons learned from these studies continue to impact the fields of immunology and infectious disease control. As we navigate an increasingly interconnected world fraught with health risks, the pioneering spirit of those volunteer soldiers reminds us of the importance of scientific inquiry in safeguarding public health, while balancing the ethical considerations inherent in such research. In conclusion, the narrative of the Whitecoat experiments offers both intrigue and introspection. It invites us to consider the dual roles of military research as a means of protecting the nation and advancing medical knowledge. The volunteers, known for their commitment to service, played a foundational role in this complex story. Their contributions continue to shape our understanding of infectious diseases and inform public health strategies today. In the face of modern challenges, the spirit of inquiry and the sense of responsibility displayed by those volunteers remain a beacon, guiding us toward a healthier future.